nation, destroys our generation. I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't mind. Looking for inspiration in my life. Looking for inspiration all the time. Looking for, looking for, looking for, looking for. Hey!
And how we doing, everybody? Spline Design Studios Saturday coming your way. Things are still a little bit messy here in the studio, so a little bit of a late start. Guess we're trying to get these things going on time. 5 p.m. Eastern time in most cases, but I did get some last minute things from our good friend Torch that we're doing some of this work on here. So one of the things I got last minute was some refinements to the Victory Lane texture for the Texas Motor Speedway build. So still getting last minute things there. So what I haven't done is to get the PTF saved and get it over to the game track directory. I did have everything set up there prior to getting this these last minute deals, but not really that much of a big deal, because as far as to get that over to the game track directory so that we can actually test it out in the sim. But yeah, we got a new look to the Victory Lane as far as it's looking more current. I guess as far as we had the texture that we had on it previously was just more of a placeholder. One of the other aspects that has been added, I guess, to this here are these pipes. And yeah, just getting a first look at these, I guess, as far as prior to getting from those, I guess, from Torch prior to start a stream. So yeah, pretty cool. So you've probably noticed, I guess, as far as the picture references for the current look at the Victory Lane. I've looked in that, I can already tell right off the bat, looking like that. The only thing that I was considering too, and I think I might have mentioned that loosely, I guess, as far as for adjustments to the Victory Lane, is where stars are on this part. My bad. So on this part right here, it does have transparency in that. The whole model itself, as a whole, does have transparency in it. So being able to add that transparency, I guess, to that area to the texture shouldn't be that difficult. I don't know why freaking buttons are being so... There we go. Being a little wonky on me. So anyway, yeah, that would have been an only thing else. I would have probably tried to apply that to that, because we've seen from the... in fact, let me see if I can navigate to that just to kind of get an idea. Coming in with a freaking sub. Rachel James sneaking on in. Hello, friends. What's up? I get some hype in chat, I guess, for that. It's kind of blindsided me there. A little bit of a delayed reaction, I guess, on my end, too. Hopefully that did come across for everybody. Yeah, so for anybody that has or doesn't have the emotes, and spam some hype in the chat. Exclamation point hype. I'll also give you that. Torch has already demonstrated that. Fantastic. How many? 34 months. Yow. No, it's definitely been longer than that. How the heck have we been doing there, H. James? We haven't seen a hot minute. Finally get to see, I guess, some of the progress of what you've been working on, I guess, as far as I said, mostly Torch, I guess, has been doing, I guess, with lots of new things, I guess, to be able to show off, I guess, as far as things that have some new things like I'm showing right here with the victory lane, and also things that have been updated since last week. So that is the latest thing right there. So yeah, what I was going to do, I guess, prior to that brand new resub, I guess, by Rachel James. Oh yeah, been gone a little while. We've got a lot of new follower emotes. Yeah, so as far as follower emotes, whether you have the subscription, you know, or subscribe to the channel, we have what are called follower emotes. So just by simply following the channel, you have a plethora of different ones. So basically, just to kind of put it in perspective, what I've done with the follower emotes is all the emotes that were in the Better Twitch TV, which I know everybody doesn't necessarily use as much. As far as the only ones I'm going to be able to get on there's the animated ones, but as far as the Better Twitch TV, which is usually the BTTV command, for those that don't have that plugin, I guess, to their browser or whatever enabled, those right there, the majority of those you can see, those are still in there, but I've also applied those to what Twitch has now allowed us affiliates and such, I guess, as far as the use of follower emotes. So just like I said, as far as simply following the channel, you have those at your disposal, I guess, as far as, and that's what I put in there. So as far as crossing the fingers, the gold star, and a couple other new ones in there too. Since I wasn't able to apply animated follower emotes, you know, as far as the clapping of the hands, that's really one I wanted to try and get in there, but we don't have that readily available to us by Twitch yet, as far as in that. I think they are potentially rolling out the option for unlocked slots, I guess, as far as for animated emotes for followers as well as subscribers. As it stands right now, we do not. So that's the only downside, I suppose, I guess, as far as the animated emotes that I have still in the Better Twitch TV plug in there. So you can feel free to use those, I guess, along with the follower emotes. So yeah, that's been a new thing. Definitely been a new thing. So yeah, I'm glad Rachel James not being around for quite some time, and for good reason, I'm sure, because doing some IRL things, I guess, with the house renovation and all that good stuff, and I hope that's coming along. We've been doing our own renovations for ourselves here, I guess, as far as between Torch and myself, I guess, as far as showcasing quite a bit going on with that. You can see the byproduct of, or the results anyway, maybe not a byproduct, because that's, I don't know, that seems derogatory, but the result of the renovations and the updates and so on to the track, the latest being the update to the Victory Lane texture, as I was mentioning. So what I was going to do is to kind of show the comparison of what the references gone by for this. That's one folder I did not get open here. I'm going to do that here real quick. So let's go like this. I'm just going to remember where the heck I put it. I'm going to create a new thing here. Oh, yeah, I guess it's going to put it over on that monitor. Okay. So we need to go over here and check out where we got all of our mesh items for Victory Lane, because I did initially start that option, you know, as far as the build of that, or rebuild, or however you want to put it. But I do have a picture reference in here, I believe. This is what I wanted to double check here. Memento, just trying to remember what I did with it. Oh, here it is. So here's the picture reference that was gone by, and this was for this year. So I guess maybe for some more clarity, I don't know if it was like this exactly last season as far as for 2020, because Torch can feel free, I guess, to elaborate on that. I don't know if it was like this for 2020, because as far as I know, and just to kind of clarify things, the track is more or less being represented, I guess, as far as of 2020, you know, being Texas 2020 TE, which for Torch Edition. So if it didn't change that much there, then that's probably fair. But as I was mentioning earlier as well, for this texture as far as to be updated, because it does have the alpha channel on the model as far as for transparency, to try and put potentially try and put, I guess, the transparency on the red fencing around these areas. It currently does not exist on that, and that could probably easily be applied, much the same as we've got transparency in the fencing and so on. So that would probably be the only other tweak, I guess, to that Victory Lane object, I guess, anyway. Oh, you gotta get him drunk? Oh, right. Yeah, fill him in there, Torch, I guess, as far as Torch was able to booze the bot up there, I guess, as far as the exclamation point drink, and the bot kind of took to that, I guess, as far as getting lushed up, and you get him snockered up a little bit like that, and he tends to loosen up a little bit and give better results, I guess, on slots and whatever. That sign that says winner should be removed. Yeah, so that's probably something else. Yeah, so the fact that they don't have that little placard there anymore. Yeah, so that goes all the way back to the 2015 build. So if, for those that have been tuning in, recall that that original model was based on the 2015 build. It was just a rebuild of that to otherwise reduce the polys, you know, that were already existing in that, and then just to bring it up to date as well. So we've gone over all that, several streams, I guess, that show the progress, I guess, of that, to including adding the I don't want to say that, I guess, as far as the opposing stands, I guess, on either side. Still haven't added such things as, like, there's a lower standing set of seating, I guess, in this area. That could potentially be added to this as well. Yeah, I think for the most part, this area here. The only other thing that I had mentioned before as well, and I'll keep mentioning that, almost feel it necessary, I guess, to put some type of more resilient, for lack of a better way to put it, type of the checkered pattern, I guess, as far as for the ground on this here, just to kind of make it stand out a little bit better than what is currently existing, I guess, that's on the infield object. That would probably be one of my only other suggestions. So to either do that in the form of a TSD, or to create a new model for that, and even possibly to cut out from the infield object. I know it's just a lot of ideas that I guess I think about, I guess, as far as to, because I think at this point, regardless of the way you do it, more than likely it's not going to show shadow from the car in this here. It's going to be more or less a battle between just making sure that whatever it does get put there in the form of a TSD or an object, or that the the object doesn't clip through the wheels as far as the tires. You know, to make it, you know, still give it that appearance that it's still riding above that. That's gonna be the only thing. But I think besides that, as far as being able to get the shadow from the vehicle, I guess as far as the show on that, probably not gonna be possible. So that's probably not gonna matter which method we use. But I do feel it does necessarily mean, I guess, is be a little bit more refined, I guess, as far as for the ground area for that victory lane. We did it the best we could, I guess, as far as to get things lined up there. So I guess that's another fair thing to mention as well. Alright, so I had to adjust some things. I'm still adjusting things like very radically. The studio is still a mess for anybody that has tuned in, I guess, as far as for the majority of the week. I've been moving things around, trying to reaccommodate, I guess, as far as being able to do many things like we do here for NASCAR Racing 2003 racing simulation, as well as other simulations like Farm Sim. So the fact that Farm Sim 22 had come out early part of this week, and the fact that I'm coming to find, and it was kind of like my worst case scenario type of thing, most of the things that in order for me to do anything with Farm Sim 22 is going to require Windows 10 and DirectX 12. So the new game engine that they do have for Farm Sim 22, so I'm kind of going off a little spin-off here for just a moment, just to kind of explain, I guess, the situation I've got here. So in my efforts to try and still do things for Farming Simulator, in this case Farming Simulator 22, that has been recently brought out there as part of this week, it only can, a lot of that stuff as far as the Giants editor, the game itself, and a lot of the tools that go along with it needs Windows 10 with DirectX 12. And the only way I can accomplish that is to be able to do it on the new PC. So as opposed to being able to do most of all my grunt work on the repaired PC that still has Windows 7 on it, won't be able to use that. So there's kind of a pro and con to it, I suppose. So it's getting everything shifted so I can accommodate, I guess, as far as being able to do all that. So it's been a headache, I guess, as far as to do that, because I was really hopeful that I wouldn't have to put a lot of the grunt work type of stuff as far as modding for simulations, even like Farm Sim 22, on my new PC. I was wanting to keep that, I guess, just for the gaming, you know, as far as just, you know, when we showcase, I guess, as far as what's going on with what we created, is all done, would have all been done on the new PC. So that's just kind of my own headache. My hopes that it would only end up that way is not. It's been kind of busted, I guess, as far as, for lack of a better way to put it. So it's kind of been a bittersweet thing, I guess, you know, because the fact that I've been able to finally get the Farm Sim stuff to work, as far as for Farm Sim 22, a lot of really cool things, I guess, as far as in the new engine. So I don't try to discount that, but it was just a pain to have to put it on the Windows 10 thing. I really don't like working with the Windows 10 PC, I guess, as far as all the grunt work. I don't mind playing the games on it, much the same as I've been able to with Enter 2003. Just don't like to do the grunt work on it. It's just not my cup of tea. But I guess at this point it is what it is. So, anywho, that's been my struggle. Yeah, so other than the victory lane, I guess as I kind of pan around here, you can kind of see some of the other things that have been done. So some of the inner walls have been redone, rescripted. One thing I did want to check out, and this is something that I was discussing with Torch, about how the state switches get applied to the different objects. So as it has stood, I guess, as far as up till now, this is what I wanted to test, was the grandstands and certain other structures around the track. By depressing the O key once you're in the simulator itself, they tend to remain regardless of depressing the O key. So as far as being able to toggle off certain objects like the grandstands and so on, that has been changed, and that's what I wanted to test. So kind of go through there. We got a slew of things that have been rescripted. I should say Torch has rescripted. And through my recommendations and suggestions, you supplied them, I guess, appropriately. And that's what we're going to go through, I guess, as far as to see how everything is at least presenting itself again here in Sandbox in comparison to the sim itself. So yeah, so some of the redone items right off the bat, I guess, as far as this was presented last week, I guess, as far as with the outer extras that has such items as what would be for the turn 3 stands, which more or less gets used as a billboard for now because they had, you know, lack of attendance and all that stuff. And then other items like on the back stretch, some outbuildings and things like that. So that had been produced. It's already been updated since last week, and I do have that currently open here in wait a minute, 2, just to kind of show the comparison. So this was the previous texture on the left that shows, and you can see almost instantly, I guess, as far as the updates to that texture, I guess, since last week when it was initially presented. So in an effort, I guess, to change the appearance, I guess, of what was the VIP stands outside of turn 3 of the track that gets used more or less as a billboard, like I said. I'm going to show it here in a second, but it's already right off the bat, like I said, you can see the adjustments to that texture that have been made for that on top of everything else. So yeah, just that little minor change to that. And then to show what the actual object looks like, I guess, as far as outside of turn 3, kind of pan around here. So still got the score tower that would, the scoring pylon anyway, would still probably need to be updated, I guess, as far as texture wise, but we at least Torch at the last minute here has been working on the victory lane, so that's been updated as I already showed. But out here on the outside of turn 3, still don't have a lot of objects in the infield yet. If I haven't pointed it out before, as far as the way he's put this tunnel in here, I think that's pretty freaking cool. And kept it relatively low poly, I guess it did too. So this is the stands outside of turn 3 that used to serve as a VIP seating. They used to have people that would sit in this area, and it just gets put billboards on it. You know, I guess as far as in this case the O'Reilly. And that texture is the same as I just showed here, I guess, as far as to put that onto that. And I noticed how this was done, and as always, you know, Torch can feel free, I guess, to elaborate, I guess, as far as on the construction of this. But it almost appears, from what I can tell in here, that basically had built the stands, I guess, without the billboard onto it, and then possibly just detached, I guess, what would have been the seating area to create the billboard, and then maintained a portion, I guess, of the seating area, I guess, as far as to kind of tuck that under the billboard. But there are several polys that are removed, I guess, as far as to, since they would not be visible, I guess, as far as what the billboard piece being on there, but you can still see quite a bit. And I think from this angle, at least anyway, it does definitely conceal a lot of that to give it the appearance that it still has seating underneath that billboard, but it's not retaining, I guess, majority of that poly underneath that billboard, because you wouldn't see it. So it's always in an effort to try and remove as many polys as possible, but still give it that level of detail, I guess, as far as that's gonna give it that appearance of what it's supposed to be. And I think that's been that's a pretty solid sample, I guess, as far as an example to show how that's done for just that simple object like that. Yeah, so like I said, they're still pretty barren here in the infield, but you can definitely get the idea, I guess, as far as once you start getting camper groups and such, and I guess as far as in that area. I'm still experiencing, I guess, a little bit of issue, and I think it's more on my end than anything, as far as just the magenta bleed on that signage. I think it's the signage texture, because I think I have discussed that with Torch there. I think he had done something with that to eliminate That as far as to remove the transparency color from that, and I think that's just something I haven't done on my end. So for anybody that might be witnessing, I guess, as far as that that magenta bleed, I guess, through that's just something that's on my end, and that's probably a pretty simple fix actually. But so yeah, let's go through some of the other things that have been either updated or added. So that turn 3 deal there, like I just showed, was one of the first most ones there. So let's take a look at some of the other ones. The media stands turn 3. That texture for the outer extras, which goes along with that. The pipes, I showed that for the victory lane. That's in a separate object, I guess, as far as for that. So it kind of eliminates some of the poly weight, I guess, from the overall victory lane. So that's probably something well to take into consideration. That's pretty much it for that. And then all the rescripted deals, I guess, as far as that. So I guess that's what I'll go through next. Is just to kind of show how these things kind of retain and whatnot, I guess, as far as what the population switches and the weekend switches. So let's we'll pan it. Let me see if I can pan it like something like this, because I want to get majority of it, because you're going to be such items like the hotel and the billboards and the grandstands that are going to be affected by what I do here in just a second. So if I go to states, we're going to do population switch first, and this function here, just to kind of give a little review on what that one's for, involves, I guess, as far as when you depress the O key from within the simulation itself, that will turn on or off the level of objects that show, in your view from the vehicle, and either inside or outside the vehicle. So we're going to set it initially to 0. So what this is going to do is any objects that are have that particular state switch onto it, they will go away, will disappear. They're still there as far as a part of the track, but they just despawn, if you will. So you can see a lot of it. So right off the bat, I can already kind of give indication here. This is the first time that I've tried it, on stream here. One of the things that I would probably retain would be the infield. You wouldn't necessarily want that to go away. That's just, because you want to maintain as much of the track integrity, I guess, as far as maintaining most of that as a whole. So right off the bat, that's something I would probably consider, I guess, as far as to retain that, to not depopulate or despawn by depress of the O key for that. Pretty much, and it's very understandable, I guess, as far as most objects that you have, you tend to potentially want to put, that population switch onto it, and that's probably fair. So one of the things that does remain, I guess, as far as these billboards that are on the backstretch, that's something that could potentially be turned off. So just kind of look at it from this angle. So that's from the top down. So you can see how that infield piece goes away. It kind of allows the, gives that appearance for the rest of the track geometry to just kind of be floating just in space, and it's kind of weird, I guess, in that way. So it kind of takes away from too much of the immersion factor. But then you can see how these here still remain there, so how they're just kind of floating. So that might be a pretty easy compromise, I guess, as far as to retain the infield, remove these or add that population switch to some items like these. That way you have more fullness, I guess, of the actual track itself, and not so much the outside library, for example. So you can see from just as I pan this way how a lot of this, even though it's modeled, like in the interior here, these are all retained. So it just kind of maintains an integrity of the track. So as you're driving around the track, you still have a lot of that, to establish, I guess, as far as, what's going on with the track itself. That it is still a track. So this is into pit entrance, coming out of turn 4, restart zone. The fact that you still got this piece, for example, as well. The fact that this is floating with the grandstand gone. So we're kind of just doing this in real time, I guess, as far as to understand what could still be added with the population switch and which doesn't. Torch getting that thing bickered up as I go through this to critique, I guess, as far as all that. Now, as I say all these things, it's like it's however you necessarily want to do that. What do you want to maintain? These are just my own suggestions, I guess, as far as what should be retained and what shouldn't. You know, based on the 3D models that you have around the track that are available. So the fact that the victory lane does go away. Okay, the starter stand has been made to retain, and part of that, this was something I had discussed with Torch, I guess, off stream, to understand that if you did depopulate or had the population switch on the starter stand, you would have the floating flagger official. That would look kind of weird. So to kind of retain that item, you know, so that's another example of things that you would consider, I guess, as far as to not have that population switch in there. I think for the most part, having the grandstands and the billboards and majority of the outside track items to depopulate, I guess, as far as with depress the O key, to include what I've already done, I guess, as far as with the score tower and the victory lane. So you still retain a lot of the integrity of the track itself as far as being able to drive around it, but you're missing a lot of distractions. Even some people too tend to consider as they're driving, they don't like those distractions. So having the option to be able to turn these things off when you're driving, let alone, I guess, to be able to regain, I guess, some frame rates, because now the sim doesn't have to load in as much by being able to depopulate. So there's those two couple of factors, I guess, to take into consideration. One of the other things, I guess, too, as far as the fact that these SMI medallions in the outside walls are modeled, those have been made to be retained with the press of the O key. So I think that's a solid choice. My own personal opinion, I guess, as far as to maintain that, because I think to remove that model piece there would take away too much, I guess, as far as from how you would navigate yourself around the wall, you know, around the track by using wall, you know, things on the wall, I guess, to be able to help with that. So if you did tend to want to use these protruding 3D SMI wall medallions into that and despawn those, that would kind of take away from something. I think quite a bit from this, you know, as I go around it this way, you can see it's just a lot of the track integrity is still maintained, and I think that's a good choice. Infield, I think, should definitely stay, you know, as far as does not have a population switch. What I wanted to take a look here, so what I did show last stream, I guess, as far as how I already noticed as I passed by here, there's a little bit of clipping here. I want to take a look at that and see how that was. I showed a little bit of a trick to be able to remove some of the geometric steel, the geometric texture of the walls, and be able to expose a little bit more of the medallion and not have a lot of that clipping. So the other thing you definitely still have to keep into consideration, what might appear, I guess, to be an issue, I guess, as far as here in Sandbox, may not be an issue in the sim. So definitely want to check that in the sim to determine if this is still the case like that. And if it's not, then leave it alone. So that's something that I want to compare. So before I do anything with that, I won't touch that one. I'm just going to take observations, I guess, as far as the lack of clipping of those 3D medallions into the wall or not. And then just observe whether or not that does take place in the sim, either from a short distance or wide distance. Let's see about these. So these still have a little bit of clipping right there, not as much. You can see a little bit of clipping on this edge, right? And there's definitely, like I was showing last week, as far as a way to be able to accommodate being able to remove some of that clipping without doing too much at all, I guess, as far as what the 3D model pieces that are medallions, right? So I'm just going to continue to go around here. I think the inner walls have been done at this point too. Am I correct? Let me look at the items here that I have from Torch. So a lot of the new pieces, all the medallion sets, which are in sets 2 for the most part, I go around the track. Hey, there you go. See? You get them liquored up. Yep, it might have been the low end, one of the low end jackpots, but see? Torch proved that. He got, I think his record right now, we don't have a leaderboard, I guess, for that, as far as the number of jackpots, I guess, in any given stream, but I think Torch had like 9 jackpots, not necessarily in a row, but 9 jackpots in one stream, from all different degrees. You know, so combination of the maximum jackpot, minimum jackpot, and so on. But you know, wide range, random, I guess, jackpots. I guess as far as, and that was a couple weeks ago, and that was the kind of the process that he used. I guess as far as just to liquor it up. It's pretty funny. I use this to my advantage, right? I mean, what's really comical is the fact that that command for the drink isn't really connected to any of those mini chat games whatsoever. So it's kind of like a psychological thing. But hey, if it works, then more power to you. Okay. So I want to look at what pieces here that has been updated since last. I don't think any of the... Yeah, so we got inner backstretch. Let me see where that one's at. Outer extra buildings. That's been rescripted. Canopies on top of the actual front stretch grandstand. Speedway Club, which is on the one end of the front stretch grandstand. So this one here, I gotta see where this one, the soft wall inner backstretch. That seems like a piece that's in the inside walls. So let me go ahead and bring back population switch, and we'll go back to 2. That should bring everything back. Oops, 2, not 12. There we go. So we bring everything back, and basically the 0, 1, and 2. The 0 would be the first press of the O key in the sim. So as you continue to press the O key, it brings those items back, and that's basically what that demonstrates. As far as to helps in sandboxes, as far as how that goes. So you don't have the option to use the O key in sandbox. You use those different numerical values, I guess, for the population state switch in here. Yeah, is that turn 1 area? What about this one here that I just pointed out, I guess, as far as this softwall inner backstretch? I just want to take a look at that real quick anyway, because that was one of the new ones you got from me. And I think it might have been just, with that population switch, I guess, as far as that we were talking about, as far as to be not present in that deal. But I'm going to go into object placement view, so it should be somewhere in this area, right? So we're going to take a look, because it is a new item, been updated, I should say. I'm going to use that term loosely, I guess, as far not new, but updated. Soft wall inner backstretch. So it's this one right here. Yep. So this one along the backstretch. I want to take a look at that real quick. See what's going on with it. Yep. So that's that piece right there. So nothing, so nothing else has been redone is that. So I'm guessing, Torch, and you can feel free to elaborate. The only thing that's probably been redone on this one here is to just set the state switches on that properly. Let me take a look at that real quick, actually. So if we go into this, we can tell very easily. Right, okay. And we can tell that really quickly, just as far as by going into, with Notepad. You can open up the 3DO object with Notepad. And you can see what's going on with this. So the fact that it does not have, it'll usually be right at the top here, as far as a population switch or anything like that. So this one does not have any of that. So by depressing the O key within the simulation, or even the population switch within Sandbox here, that does not affect the visibility, I guess, of this particular model, for example. So we can see right at the top here too what texture it's used with that. In fact, if we do a search on that, we can just do a little bit of review here. So if we want to search for any MIPS, the MIPS that are applied to this model, while you got it in Notepad, you can find those that way. So it is using more than one MIP, I guess, on this deal. You got this texture, two textures it looks like. So we got this one here and the one that's at the very top. So let me put it back to the top of the. So if we do a find MIP, so it's going to be this texture and that texture. So it's got two textures applied to that particular model. That's about all I think you do in there. Can't really edit. You shouldn't either, as far as to edit that, even though everything is relatively legible. I guess in that faction, just using a simple Notepad. Don't want to edit that as far as in there. So the only way to edit how those textures are applied would be to model it, you know, as far as to script it with those particular textures and so on, you know. So using your pass export with 3D SimEd, so on and so forth, to be able to get that. I do have that being said, I do have Max open up here. I didn't really have a game plan, I guess, as far as doing any modeling today. I felt like the last couple of streams so far has been just going over what's going on with the new items, especially even at this point, what has been redone. Now I notice in here, as I say that, as far as the grandstand people, which is that one section of the 3D crowds on the main grandstand, you can see that even from here. I guess I didn't realize, I guess, what's been redone on that torch, and we can take a look at this just like we did that softball inner backstretch deal. So that's what I'm gonna do here with this one as well. So if we go, I wasn't aware, I guess, as far as that there was a need, I guess, to redo that. So I know I had previously checked out the state switches, as far as the weekend state switches anyway, for that. So maybe it did have the population switch and it didn't need it. Is that what the case was? Or? Oh, they showed in practice. I gotcha. So you didn't want them to show in practice. Okay. You just don't want them to show during race. Okay. Well, we can test that here too, just to make sure that it is functioning the way it's supposed to. But we can do the same thing with this model, and right off the bat you can see what's different with this one here. So it does have a population switch, right? And it also has a weekend switch. So it's kind of a double whammy, I guess, on that. So this is kind of a nice feature. This might come in handy in how these 3D crowds get applied to such a big set of stands on the front stretch. So what could potentially happen, because they're going to be in like sections and like segments, possibly. They're not going to be one piece. Possibly. I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing the options that are available, I guess, as far as creating those 3D crowds. You could have some of them that you can turn off via depress of the O key population switch, like these are currently, and some of them you can just have them be retained, but also have that weekend switch in there to where they're only going to populate during a certain session. And that's what's and we can't necessarily tell from in here what sessions are applied. So you, in the weekend state switch, you have the three levels. You have practice, happy hour, and so on. You got qualifying, and then you've got the actual race. So you basically have three different sessions of the weekend, you know, whenever you start a weekend in the sim, to be able to work with. But just because it says weekend, it doesn't really break it down, at least looking at it this way, as far as which parts of the weekend does it show and does it not. And the way you can test that is right here in Sandbox, much like the population switch. So again, for some, this might necessarily be considered review as I go over this, but it does give good clarity, I guess, as far as understand how these different features and functions work, such as the weekend switch and the population switch, and any combination of that. So if we highlight, let's pan over this way to our grandstands, and again, just like I've always shown, instead of being having to click into the main Sandbox viewport, it definitely works better if you go through your items list while you're in object placement view and select it that way. So the fact that these are called grandstands people, if I remember right, I go through the list and they should be relatively alphabetic. So here's the object. You can see that's highlighted in the main view. So now from here, I guess I don't really need to select it, but this is kind of giving you an idea of what's going on with it. That's what we got selected here. So to check the state switches of that, as well as everything else that's in the track, we're going to set the state switch value to weekend. We had it currently on population. So as I initially apply this, it's going to have value 2 is going to be for full race weekend. So you're like in the race as far as green flag, all that good stuff. So as I put this on weekend, everything is going to remain showing to include these stands. Now, if I scale it back to what would be practice, if it's designed the way Torch was explaining it there, this should go away. So these 3D people in the stands will not show during practice, which will be 1. Yep, so let's go to mouse is active a little bit. So state switch fair, so we go to 1. I was hoping maybe to keep that window up there, but put it to a 1, doing okay. Now that should be gone. Now, if that's the way Torch is wanted to design, it's doing exactly what it should do, as far as to not show during happy hour qualifying and practice. So any one of those sessions. So the only time it's going to show, in this case, with this particular segment or section of 3D people in the crowds, it's only going to show during a race. So I can go all the way back to testing, for example. Let's set that to 0, which is the testing session. They still should be non-existent, if that's what Torch has done. So if we go on like this, so they're still not visible. So if I put it back to 2, which is full race, you should respawn, repopulate for that weekend state switch. And then the other thing I want to check is the population switch. So when they're on, if I depress the O key, they'll go away along with the stands, just like we've shown. But just to kind of focus just on that that item right there, along with everything else too, as we apply this. So I'm going to put it, so that's in 0. We're already in testing. Let's go back to population. I'm going to leave it on 0 so that it should go away entirely, regardless of even if I put it on. All right, actually, what I want to do, hold on. Let's bring it back first. I know what I meant to do. So I want to put this back on 2, just to show that they are back, like so. This is full race. Now if you put it in population and do a 0, this should go away as well. So it's kind of like, you know, as you're racing, you'd be able to turn a lot of these items on, so you don't have floating 3D people, I guess, without a stance, for example. That's just some of these little finer details that you have to consider, I guess, as far as when you're applying these different state switches to things. Yeah, that's probably a good point, Torch, I guess, sketching what you mentioned, I guess, as far as having all those 3D crowds in one piece. It might be a little too poly heavy. Might have to break them up. But I think by breaking them up, you have the option to be able to have some turn on and some turn off during different sessions. That way you have some population of 3D crowds in different section of the stands, possibly. Either that or just using a totally different model to have more sparse 3D people in the stands. as opposed to like a whole section is just fully populated. There's plenty of options there. Alright, so they are populated. Now I'm going to put in a population switch just to kind of show if we put it on 0, that should go away. Even though it's still on the weekend state switch for 2, which is full race. Right? So if we set this to population now, I'll initially keep it on 2 and go to 0, those should go away. If it's designed in such a fashion. Like that. So initially when I do this, it's going to see 2, so it'll still be there. Yep. That's doing like it should so far. And then if we go to 0 on that population, that should all go away. So I still got it highlighted, right? But you can see exactly where it was, and it's gone. So even though it's still on it, so even when you push the O key again, it'll come back as, you know, during a race session. So whatever session you happen to be in, versus depress the O key regardless of which session, they'll either show or not show depending on that. That's still really throwing me off that infield goes away. It's such a big, vast piece there, because as far as it just kind of takes a big chunk, it feels out of the track. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring that back. Let's put this on 2, back on 2. Now, whatever you set the state in here in Sandbox doesn't matter, I guess, as far as when you save your PTF. As far as what happens in the sim, everything's still going to load based on the session that you're in. So, for example, if I were to save the track with the population set to 0, which means they're not showing in Sandbox, right? That doesn't mean that nothing's going to show, I guess, as far as when you take that saved PTF with that setting in it, it'll show that up the way in the game. You still have to go through the depress of the O key and get to the particular sessions, I guess, for that all to function the way it's supposed to. That's probably a nice fair mention. So I know I've seen some track builds where you'll open the track up and there's nothing there, right? It's like everything is empty, but you can actually click on things, you know, in an object view. It's like, where the heck is everything? More than likely, what happened was when they saved the PTF, they had it in the population of 0, and everything had, the majority of the objects had that population switch into it. So it makes everything go away, as far as object-wise. So it's kind of funky, I guess, in a way, but it's like that's an option if that's what you like to do. I guess as far as to, you know, as kind of as it's really easy again to bring it back if you know what you're doing. Is as far as to go into the adjust state variable and then just set it to a value 2. You know, so it's pretty simple, I guess, to be able to turn that back on, even though it was saved, I guess, with that population state of 0. With the objects, if the objects are constructed in such a fashion, at least, anyway. All right. Armonk coming on there. Armonk. What's up, Armonk? Armra. I'll get it right. I'll just call you Zanya. I know that's what Bob likes to call you. Armonk, for anybody that doesn't know, has joined in, I guess, since this past Tuesday, for Trucking Tuesday. So he's joined in, I guess, as far as to see what's going on here for Spline Design Studios Saturday, which is, we get a little creative. We do a little bit of 3D modeling, we do some track building, for the most part. That's been the majority of the streams here for Spline Design Studios Saturday, is continuing the process of building the Texas Motor Speedway for the NASCAR Racing 2003 racing simulation. And yeah, I did say that correctly. For anybody that might be listening in as far as like 2003, like what the heck? You making stuff for that for? And it's just like the fact that there's still modern content being created for such an old simulation does definitely prove that you can teach an old dog new tricks. Oh, you do 3D modeling as well? Like, what 3D modeling application of choice do you use? Out of curiosity. I know for most of us here, you got Torch and Racer James and so on. We do tend to use 3ds Max by Autodesk as of recently. So I currently do, like I've mentioned a little bit earlier, as far as I do have 3ds Max application open. Whether or not I do get into any modeling at all, yet to be considered. I figured for the most part what I'd like to go over is just as far as what is brand new, as far as that Torch's work done, since we presented the track last week. So, yeah, and just to give some more clarity there, this track build is not entirely 3D modeled, right? So there are what can be considered geometric splines. The way the NASCAR Racing 2003 simulation works, you have to apply what are considered to be, and I'll put that in that mode, geometry sections. Green lines representing as far as track texture, blue lines representing collidable walls and fences and things like that. And then you have your X sections, which determine height as far as the banking, as far as the contour of the turns, from a from apron to like the high bank, if you will. So yeah, that's what you see represented here in this one here. So those are it's what we've been able to do, I guess, as far as to teach this old dog new tricks, that is Enter 2003. Commonly in the past, most things were just built almost entirely, I guess, as far as geometric, as far as that were track related. So anything that was not track related, like grandstands and other track libraries, has all been 3D modeled. We've been able to take it one step further and being able to merge, I guess, as far as 3D model pieces into the geometric. So one of the examples being the fact that NASCAR has implemented the safer walls, I guess, as far as the steel and foam energy reduction system throughout majority of the tracks that they race on. So it's kind of a combination between 3D modeled, which is the foam, and the geometric, which is the steel and the concrete. And being able to get those to mesh together and make it look, like it's all either geometric or all 3D modeled. The latest thing that Torch has done is taken the initiative, I guess, to be able to apply these 3D model pieces that are these medallions into the geometric wall. So the fact that you would never know without, the way we tend to present the track on stream here, that it was 3D modeled. You would just consider it's all either all 3D modeled or all geometric. And that's been a very hard balance, I guess, as far as to be able to get that to get that way. It's come a long way, I guess, as far as it's probably the better part. I think the process that we started with the safer goes all the way back to like prior to 2017. So probably early part of 2015 was one of the builds that we did for the Texas Motor Speedway build, and it's been reconfigured since then. So obviously Torch is taking the initiative, I guess, to redo that to the current configuration that the track is in this time, at this day and age. And it has opened up the portals, if you will, I guess, as far as to say, well, how will we try this? And it just tends to work sometimes. So, yeah. But definitely anything that I'm explaining on here is if it's not making any sense, or if you got other questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, professionals still can't make anything better. I mean, in some cases, yeah, not wrong. You see, you use various programs: Autodesk, used AutoCAD, 3ds Max, and Revit. Never heard of that one. I use Sketches. Trying to guess, you Rhino with Grasshopper. Man, some of these I don't even know. There's a lot of them are out there, obviously. What I'm not seeing in that list there, I guess, as far as Blender, because that's some of the things that's one of the 3D modeling programs that I've been recently getting into with FarmSim. FarmSim seems to be a heavy. There's a heavy weight, I guess, as far as component-wise, I guess, as far as using Blender for creating items in there. Not to mention Maya. So yeah, out of those lists, those things that you list there, I don't see those. That's pretty interesting. I guess as far as to see different programs that I never heard of. Who's mooing at me? Who's horse farting me? Blender is not that good of an architecture. Yeah, I mean, Blender's definitely it's a learning curve, I guess, as far as like using something like I've got the better part of a decade with using Autodesk. You know, going all the way back to like say Max 5. The fact that even the latest versions of Max are starting to get a little more complicated.
Hit the pace car! Hit the pace car! What for?
We'll be getting into that a little bit later, but yeah. Yeah, Blender, I would have to consider, I guess, as far as being a little bit wonky, I guess, as far as it's a very huge learning curve if you're not used to it. The way the user interface is, you know, the way you navigate through that user interface, it's kind of wonky in comparison to a lot of the more industry leading type of applications like Max, you know, like 3ds Max and Maya, maybe even some of those, I guess, that you've used there, Armand. Yeah, there's definitely some of those I haven't heard of as far as what you mentioned, so that's pretty interesting, I guess, as far as but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Yep, as he spiked the punch, I was just rolling back there, so Torch got the win. What was it? What size was the jackpot? Oh, that was the low end one. Yep, but low end one or not, that's still counts. So James has at least gotten one, and Torch has at least gotten one. It's keeping tabs. Okay, cool. I think I'm caught up on that. Just want to make sure don't miss anything in chat. And if it was like I said, as far as if there's anything else that I'm doing here on stream, or if anything that is mentioned in chat or not mentioned in chat, definitely feel free to ask. That's why I tend to do these deals here on Saturday. Spline Design Studios Saturday is to kind of fill in any of those questions. All right. Cool. Yeah, so these are, so what I wanted to go over here, just to kind of a little bit of review. I was showing a little bit of a trick last week, so I'm going to kind of go loosely over this again, just to kind of show what what trick I did show as far as, so in the process of marrying these 3D model pieces into the geometric, right? The geometric by nature of the sim tends to like to quote unquote breathe. It tends to like to expand and contract based on how it's rendered in the sim. So it doesn't stay static. It doesn't stay, like one shape, if you will. So that's just the graphics engine that is Enter 2003 when it comes to geometric pieces. So being able to marry those 3D model pieces, it tends to do that. So just to kind of summarize, I guess, as far as, I think this piece here, I don't remember, but in turn one here, I'd already shown this earlier. You can see how that clips right there. That's that 3D model piece that's clipping through the geometric. And I had shown pretty thoroughly, I guess, as far as how you can potentially eliminate that. So I'm going to show that in here. And I'm going to definitely test this in the sim first to see if it does actually clip. That's why I was going around the rest of the track, just to kind of see if that was evident in any other of these spots. But one way you can try to eliminate that is, the reason that's black behind there is because you got the geometric is clipping through the 3D model piece, which is this medallion, this round piece. So let me let's go like this, just to kind of show what's going on here. The bot spam? Yeah. People tend to get a little crazy with the bot here. That's rightfully so. That should have been adjusted with the PTF file. I don't know. Did you apply it that way? That's what I'm going to take a look here real quick. Just to kind of see. Let's take a look here. So if we go to object placement here real quick, what I'm going to do, so these pieces have been made kind of convenient in a way to just be set at 0 because they're built in place based on the track geometry itself. So the fact that objects like these, they're all set to 0 all the way around. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier to be able to do this. There are pros and cons to that. So I need to get, I forget what set this one is. I think this one's 4. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong there, Torch. I think this is medallion set 4, because they aren't set to 2. So let me take a look. Should be in order. Let's see here. 4. Yep, I think that is the one. That is exactly the one I want. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pull this up on the Z a little bit. So let's go like this. And go like that. So there is, the geometric has not been pulled away on this one. That's what I wanted to confirm. So that's why you're seeing that black flip through that. Okay. But there was an area that I did last stream just to kind of show how I applied this. So if I go back this way, I think it was in this set. We're going to check this real quick here. This should be set 3. I think if everything was in order here. That's set 3. Yep. So I'll do the same thing here. And we should see the black as far as the geometric wall get kind of pulled away to eliminate some of that geometric wall to be able to put this medallion inside of that. That makes sense. Should make sense here once I pull that out. So you can see how that's been removed to eliminate that clipping of that medallion into the geometric. That's all I did was just kind of lift that out of the way just to kind of show how that's done. So we don't have that on this piece where we see the clipping. So that's something that, and what I'll want to do is actually test that in the sim first to make sure that that clipping still does exist in the sim itself. Because if it doesn't, we'll end up leaving it alone. That's what I was mentioning there previously, I guess, as far as the way the geometric pieces, as far as the splines, the way the textures are applied to, they tend to breathe, for lack of a better way to put it. They don't stay uniform all the way across, and that's just the way those types of things get rendered differently in both Sandbox as well as the sim itself. That's why you definitely always have to test it between the two applications, be it Sandbox. So Sandbox doesn't necessarily open, it's not the full-fledged graphics engine as it would be in the sim itself. As far as the way the shadows from the cars and the structures get applied to it, you don't have all that in Sandbox, for example. So it's the same. That's why you have to test them both. Make sure that it may exist in one like it does here, but it may not do it in the sim. That's why I was going around earlier, just as far as stuff. So I'll bring this back down to kind of show. So yeah, just kind of create holes in the actual geometric wall. So the collidable property is still there. It's just you're just removing texture. As far as to move the text segs to kind of expose and eliminate some of that that geometric piece there, so it doesn't clip through the model piece. All right, so let's bring that back down, back to 0. Go. Yeah, so like I said, all these pieces like that, they get built into place. So there's a 3D model version of the track in 3D SimEd. In the form of a DAE, right? And then everything as far as model pieces like these get built in place, so that when they get extracted and exported out from 3D SimEd, they're already where they need to be just by setting it 0. You know, so it's 0 to the world as opposed to being local. Okay. Yeah, so that's the only place I initially think. I'm going to continue to go around here. I didn't really finish going around the rest of the track like I did there for turn 1. Let's continue to do that. Turn 1, we can already definitely see there is some potential clipping, at least here in Sandbox, right? So in the Apex here, don't see any clipping on that, so that looks pretty decent. And I also observe that it's nice and flush. You don't have a lot of lift or anything like that, no gaps, I guess, on that piece. It's really, the only lip, I guess, that does exist on here is what does exist in actuality, as far as it's kind of offset on this top part of the medallion. It's not 100% flush all the way through that. So Torch is taking the approach, I guess, as far as to add that little bit of a lip. They actually have the actual track. And that's pretty much the same on all these different sets. Let's check turn 2 here. Don't see a whole, I see it very minimal. It's not that much. And this, I guess, would be the right edge of the medallions. You can see a little bit from a certain distance there. See how that tends to fluctuate there a little bit. So in that one, and I'm only observing, like I said, in here, and then we're going to make those some observations within the sim itself to see if it actually does the same thing. If it doesn't, chances are you can just leave that alone. It's only going to be present in Sandbox potentially. So we got medallions on the back stretch here. This is relatively straight, so we shouldn't have any clipping on that. The ones that'll tend to do it the most is when you've got the most amount of contour and angle. So it's like the more angle that you have, as far as like, so on the turns you have not only angle as far as on the bottom edge, you know, as far as to tip it, the whole medallion on the bottom edge, it gets as far as to accommodate the contour of the banking, but also the curvature of the wall itself. So that's going to be the most complex piece, I guess, as far as the turns go. On straight stretches like this, not going to be as hard. I mean, there still are some difficulties, I guess, to get it nice and smooth, make it nice and fluid, so on like that, but not nearly as bad as it is in turns. So the turns ones are going to be set. So let's check the one here in turn 3. Already working up into 3 hours. Yeah. So you spend more time in here, you'll get that boosted up there. So you are earning those valuable units of fluid even as the stream is live. But you can always feel free to supplement those units of fluids by playing the mini chat games. The slots. For 10 units of fluid per play, you can play slots. You can risk some of your fluids by exclamation point risk. It's just like gambling. You can gain or lose. You can also give yourself a shot that's on reserve. You can only give yourself one of those every few minutes. The bot will only allow you to do that every few minutes. So those, like I said, those are premium on reserve. A little bit of clipping here. And if at any time none of those work out to your benefit, you can always try to scold the bot, kind of slap them up a little bit. Be like, hey. And sometimes, not always, you may give in and just give you 100 units of fluid and say, leave me alone. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes it'll just give you nothing at all. So there is a little bit of clipping on here in turn 3. Very minimal. It's not, you know, that extreme, but there's a little bit present. Yep, so no matter what angle there, I mean, it's very, very minimal. The other thing I want to look at here is just like the other ones, as far as to see how much of a gap we potentially have here, which none at all, other than that same lip that we got on the top part of the wall. Struggling so hard, yeah. It's understandable. It's understandable. Are you snookered up yourself too? Shine. Where do you get that one there from, Rich James? You've been sipping on a little bit of the shine. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. Let's check this out. So yeah, so that little bit of a lip on that top portion of the wall, the medallion. Very nice touch too. That the way that blends in there. Like I said, you hardly ever know that was modeled as opposed to geometric. That's the whole idea. Doesn't shine. Yep. Right. So yeah, using one of the follower emotes there. So that's kind of a placeholder, I guess, as far as for. I've got some ideas for some. Yeah. So Twitch offers, I guess, some generic or default emotes, follower emotes. So that's one of them there, I guess, as far as that. Also the GG. GG is one. I've got a modified GG. That's a combination of GG and rigged. So if you want to kind of like be like, that's, you know, if the bot's not playing nice with it, you can use the rigged. That's kind of like a combination of GD and rigged. So that's more of a custom one that I've done, I guess, as far as that one. So something that we pointed out a couple streams ago, I guess, about running out of the number of text segs that you have in any given section. So the fact that this section that is in 3 and 4 is so wide, the fact that regardless of how big your track segment is, you're limited to 16 text segs. And the fact that Torch did run into a potential issue of being able to apply all the logos onto the wall, and that's such a big section, and was able to compensate for that by being able to make the texture 4096 as opposed to 2048 wide. So at this point here, we did not have things like this as far as the O'Reillys here. You had to kind of eliminate that so you could still get in the turn 4. I think it was more over here, my bad. So it was this one that was missing. So now that one's in there. But by making this texture here for the O'Reillys more of a 496 wide, and that's about the maximum you can go for textures. I shouldn't say about, it is. So 4096 is the maximum size, either width-wise or height-wise, that you can go on a texture for. So call it 4K, if you will. You definitely want to keep that to a minimum. The creation of 4K textures for majority of the track, to include your walls as well as, like, so say for example, if you do use a 4K texture as far as a 4096 by 4096 for your track texture, you're going to be limited as far as how big you can make the other textures like your walls. So you definitely want to keep that in mind, I guess, as far as when you do that, because as far as the graphics engine that is for 2003 at its base, without doing any modifications or executable tweaks, I guess, to it, it's got that restriction on there as far as like how much texture wise that it can actually render. So keeping things to a minimum and still maintaining detail, and we've shown many times. So the way these textures are done in here are definitely not 4096, right? So they are for the most part on the maximum of the 2048, as far as at least in either height or width, but not necessarily always in both directions. So the fact that the way Torch has done this so far and had the ability of being able to apply this texture for the O'Reillys in a 4096, it gave him a lot of room to be able to do that without taking away from frame rates as far as in the sim itself. So that's definitely something always to take into consideration for that. There's room to do it if you need to, but do it only if you need to, based on having that restriction of the 16 text segs in such a big track segment. And I was going to show, I'm still in, let's go into the geometric. So if we go into geometric here, and again, this is going to be a review for most, but the fact that this end of the tractor is such a wide section, as opposed to the way it is broke up on this end, right? You're still going to only have 16 text segs to be able to put within that segment, regardless. So any given segment, be it this one will have 16, this one will have 16, even this one, still only 16. So it doesn't increase the number of text segs that you get just because your track seg is wider. Now, again, just to summarize, in order to eliminate, as far as one might be tempted to want to split this up to do it much the same as this end. If you've already gotten your track to where it drives nice, there's no bumps in it, it's nice and smooth. At this point in particular, definitely would not suggest as far as to split that. because you're going to ruin the entire integrity of the track, and if any case, you're going to add a lot more poly weight to the overall geometry to the track than it already is there. You want to keep it as much to a minimum, so the bigger the segment that you can make any part of the track, the better. So being able to keep your track segments, it's not so much your track segments to a minimum, it's the size of the track segment. So the smaller the segments that you make, especially less than 6 meters wide, you know, as far as from head to tail, is definitely going to cause more of a problem, I guess, as far as the way things get scored and a plethora of other things like that. So again, the more you can keep your track segments bigger, you know, as far as a larger shape, not only will it eliminate a lot of the poly weight to the geometry itself, but as far as the way everything gets scored, as far as how your spotter cues work, as far as in and off pit road and things, is going to work a lot more efficiently. So, and definitely, we've proven it many times before, as many times that we've tested this in the sim, even as much as I show it, it's going to prove as far as optimizing the track in such a fashion. So there's only the shorter segments of track where they need to be. So like if we want the access to victory lane, for example, you have this one segment that's still within that confines of the 6 meters from head to tail to accommodate the length of the actual vehicles that drive around the track, right? And there's plenty of explanation that we've had in previous previous streams, I guess, about that too. But you definitely want to keep the size of this size of a segment to a minimum, because you definitely add a lot more poly weight. Because everything gets chopped up, I guess, much more finer. You know, kind of like, consider, I guess, as far as how you take an onion and chop it up when it's, you know, into smaller pieces. That's what's happening in these smaller segments, as opposed to a larger segment that's going to be a lot more spread out. So you're not going to have as much poly in there. It's going to be a lot bigger polys than it would be in a smaller segment. Hopefully that makes sense enough. I feel like that is a lot of summary, but it's a very good point, I guess, to reiterate. Look at Torch even trying to do whiskey and rum. You don't have any of that. You guys are just making stuff up now. Speaking of which, I need to get myself my drink of choice here is diminished, so I need to go replenish it real quick. So I'm going to be back in just a moment. Don't go nowhere. I'm going to put up the intro fighters here, I guess, for a little bit, so you guys can feel free to kind of converse amongst yourself, and or just continue to play the mini chat games, booze the bot up yourself, and I'll be back in just a moment. Let me don't go nowhere. Looks like our got it. Yep. Yeah. Our mug's like, what the heck? Yeah, so for some of you may not realize, I know Racer James hasn't been able to accommodate that. So all you got to do is just, yeah, there's the rig. There you go. Yep, so it is just random. This is the more you chat, you can use emotes and just spam that in the chat. It gets the intro fighters, I guess, going. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I was gonna jump in there myself, but then I would have started up a whole nother one of those. But yeah, I added that to the BRB screen. That gives you all something to do, I guess, as far as while we're in a little bit of intermission. Holy crap! 420 on a noggin. 420. Wow! Look at all those units of fluids. Torch has definitely been, he's been playing a lot of, yeah, so probably a fair mention, I guess, as far as the amount of time, has really nothing to do with the units of fluids, especially if you're playing the mini chat games. So if you've only, if you don't play the mini chat games and that's all you're doing is just earning your units of fluid based on time, it's going to be a lot lower. So it definitely does behoove, I guess, as far as to supplement, I guess, as far as by playing the mini chat games. Costs you as little as 10 units of fluid per play. I guess as far as to do slots, for example. So, and you can earn yourself potentially 1,000 units of fluid maximum in the jackpot. That's definitely something to shoot forward. I'm stumbling? It's not on my end. In fact, I don't even have any dropped frames. But I give it a, yeah, hopefully it's, yeah, good on my end. Hopefully that's, oh, we gotta download GTA 5. I ended up having to uninstall that one. That got too big. One of the last updates that they did on it was like, that game is just way too chunky. Storage wise, I guess, on my, and that's part of me, my having to, swap things around with the Windows 10 system and that. I don't have as much storage on the new system as I'd like to, that I do on the repaired PC that has the Windows 7 on it. So yeah, that's been another big downer, I guess, as far as like, so some of those games that I just don't play GTA 5 as much, and the fact that it is such a chunky game, yeah, I've had to take that out, unfortunately. In order to accommodate, I guess, as far as doing the things that I want to do, I guess, as far as for other simulations like Farm Sim 22. So, where do we leave off? Alright, so one of the other things I guess I was thinking about when I stepped away to get to my drink replenished there was some of the pinning protocols that we've applied in there are still applied, obviously, but that's kind of more a review, I guess, than anything, just to kind of show what that looks like. So one of the things that got done last week was to create that buffer zone for the dog leg. So not having the apron so close to the actual, paint line for that. So you can see how that's been applied. So you can, as you're driving around the track, you can kind of use, an invisible line that is this apron area, kind of flanking the start finish line. You can kind of draw that invisible line through the front stretch there. That's that little bit of buffer that you've got in there, so you don't get an erroneous black flag as far as getting the vehicle, I guess, as far as past that innermost painted line on the dog leg here. And it did work out very well, I guess, as far as by doing that, as far as to create that buffer zone. It could definitely be reduced if you want to. It doesn't necessarily need to be this big. I just tend to apply it that wide to more than enough accommodate. Yeah, so the fact that this is designed as racing surface, but in some cases what I did was still applied it as grass over here, so I'll switch it over to surface types so you can kind of see what's going on. So Torch, the way Torch initially did it, as far as to accommodate the majority of this section of the track, that because it does have these eighth mile track pieces, I guess, in here. We want to have that to be asphalt. So the fact that, again, it comes back down to not being so not insistent, but to have the urge to want to split that up to accommodate where that asphalt would actually fall for these, not a good idea. You want to not do that as much as possible. So the fact that we still have plenty of grass in these flanking areas of the main section of the dogleg on the front stretch, I think it works out really well. And it gives you plenty of room, I guess, as far as to be able to, you know, if you're coming off a turn 4, especially if you're side by side, and you do tend to lean over, I guess, into the grass, what would be the grass area here, it gives you a little bit of time to recover before you get well into the less grippy edge, I guess, is grippy side of the front stretch here, and the, you know, outside and in and out of the dog leg. It gives you some time, I guess, as far as to be able to get more control, I guess, of the car, as opposed to just being totally lost, I guess, as far as once you get in there. So I think it's a nice balance from what I've tested so far, I guess, as far as to have that little bit of a cushion or recovery from them getting into the grass there, especially if you're racing really hard through here. We've seen plenty of hard battles, I guess, come in and out of the dog leg here at tracks like Texas, where you get in the grass and it's just like they're able to actually, really wheel the car, I guess, as far as get it back under control and get it back on the track without detriment. And I think that's what this having it applied in this fashion, it allows for that. Not to mention getting a black flag, having it a little bit wider of a zone as opposed to a narrower. So that just kind of shows, I guess. So this area here, this is all asphalt. This is grass, as far as the surface types for that. And then again, just to kind of show the extended surface types, which shows where's the apron, which is that burnt orange, bright orange, or apron or pits. We've tested that all previously, I guess, as far as to show how the spotter cues actually work. Based on, you've got these green areas that we've used as a basis, I guess, as far as when that spotter actually cues, as far as when you have to be down to pit road speed and or can speed once you get past, depending on which end of the pit road that you're on. I think I did point out last week too, I guess, as far as how some of these areas, even though it's not directly in areas that you would use, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, I guess, unless it's post race, you do have some areas here that are still race areas, which shouldn't be. It could probably be either pit road and or apron, just like it is here. So you can see these burnt orange areas here. This gray area would be picked racing surface, so that's something that can be still adjusted. Just things to take into consideration, just as far as prior to really finalizing the track. I think we went through last week as well, just trying to remember what we did. So a lot of this was undefined as far as the fencing, for example. So we did reapply that to kind of get it to be racing surface. There's still the walls that would need to be done as racing surface as opposed to apron. That could definitely in a racing situation, as far as when you're racing in a league or just in a single player, that could potentially be an issue, I guess, as far as having these areas not defined properly. But you probably want to have these as racing surface, but they do behave, I guess, in much that fashion. As far as if, especially if your car, the AI car, does hit that area, as far as it's gonna, the sim is going to respond differently as far as having that defined as racing or apron. So the fact that we got this burnt orange in here, this is depicting the walls as apron. Probably want to have that as racing surface. So from here all the way through to include the fence would be all gray, which would be racing surface. So anything beyond that point would be either apron near pits, bright orange, and then the burnt orange is apron. So it's all in all, not only spotter cues, but how things get scored, as far as like if your car gets in those certain areas. That's why in this area in the dog leg, we have made this racing surface to give that a little bit of a buffer. Because what we were finding, we were getting a black flag when we even got our left side tires onto what would be the grassy area here. And that's not what you want in most cases. You get kind of like, so especially if you're racing really hard, you know, and you kind of get, you know, getting pushed, I guess, down there, it's going to be a detriment. That's kind of an insult to injury, if you will. So even if it's not you as the driver's fault, you know, you might get pushed down there to have that little bit of a buffer. All right, so I think that's pretty much all I wanted to show that. So now, and I also made a point, and that's just probably another fair mention. So the way these walls are done, right? Because they've got all the texture segs, I guess, as far as for the wall, you know, in the different text seg locations, it would be very tempting to want to do a copy properties forward and or backwards. I guess on this one, you probably won't want to do that, especially with all your logos already applied to this here. But keeping in mind that just to switch these over to racing surface, you don't necessarily need to go to each text seg. You know, because the text segs that are within the geometric wall are different than going from segment to segment. But still, regardless of the way you go about it, it would be very tempting to want to do that copy forward for the property that would be changing this over, and you probably don't want to do that, especially with all the wall logos being applied, because that'll, whatever you copy forward, it's going to copy whatever was in the previous segment all the way through. So you got to be really careful at that point as far as being able to apply that. And I can kind of show this really quick, what I mean by that. So I'll kind of use this as a testing bed to kind of show what happens. So let's just say, for example, if we go in this segment here, I want to make sure I got the safer wall, for example, that has all our logos in with their proper text seg coordinates on it. So if we go back to here, I'm going to put this back on. Let's go back to display textures. There we go. Now, I'm going to go back and forth between this just to kind of show how this works. But let me get to somewhere that has... Alright, so on this part here where it's got the black and the Texas by our medallions here, I want to get about in that area. Let's go to my main view here. And again, I'm only going to use this as a test bed. I'm not going to save this. This just to kind of show you what will happen when you use that copy forward and or backwards in a bad way, as far as when you got that. Because it'd be very tempting as far as to want to change those properties of these wall segments by moving, copying forward and backwards. And you don't want to do that. Really don't want to do that. I sound like a broken record, but I want to make that abundantly clear. If you're already to this point where you got all the logos on here, you don't want to use that copy forward. And I'm going to show that just why here. So that's apron. I'm going to unlock this. So I'm on the top. I want to get to the left. I guess I don't really need to be on the left one. I just want to show that there is a texture on there. So the fact that this has Texas Star to start off with. All right, that's only got one seg. Let's go forward. So it goes to Star. Stripe, so that's going to be back here a little bit. That's going to be like right here. I'm in this region. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so yeah, we're roughly in this region here. You can see it's got the blue stripe. I go to the next seg, it goes back to Star. That's all it's there. Alright, so let's use this as an example. So the fact that, say for example, you wanted to switch this over to race, because you want it to be racing surface as opposed to apron. Now, if you copy forward, while you're in this section where that has all these separate text segs like this, it's going to copy all those text segs to the next segment. And then I'm going to show this right now. So if I do a copy forward, let's see, it's probably hard to see it, but see how it's copying all that forward. See how I put another blue line right there? So everything that was existing and where I copied from, which included this blue line, it's now moved it down to here by doing that copy forward. So even though I might have put that racing surface property to it, it's messed up my texture segs as far as how it's applying it to the different segments as I copy forward. So you can see there's one here now that didn't currently exist. By copying forward, that's what it did. And I can prove, just to show, if I go into, whoops, I go back, oh darn it, I got too many windows open. That's what happens when you try to show everything at once here. So what I need to show is extended surface types. So it'll definitely show that I've got the racing surface onto it that I want, but also it screwed up my, so if you're in this view, for example, and not paying attention to what's going on with your texture, you wouldn't know that until after you switch it back over to display textures. So in this view, you wouldn't see that happening if I continue through the process of copying forward. So let's continue to go, see copy for, see I can see that it's applying the racing surface, right? Let me continue to copy forward, and I'm only using this as a test bit. I'm not going to save this. Now if I switch back to display textures, everything that I've got applied to those walls previously is going to be messed up. Let's go back to display textures, camera. Now you can see how that's messed up. See, it's how it's got that blue stripe, and anything I had there, I had the Texas that was in there, and that's all messed up. So you gotta really be careful, I guess, as far as using that feature. So in this case, in order to get that throughout all the segments, you want to move it manually. Don't do a copy forward. So instead of, let me move it down just a little bit more just to kind of show what's the better approach to go with this. So I'm about right here. See, it already wiped out this Texas turn 1 here. So the next one I'm going to be in is where this O'Reilly's at. Let's go to that. So instead of doing the copy forward, right, to get the racing surface, I'm just going to go manually forward. It's going to be on apron, and then go racing surface. Now it doesn't matter. You do not need to go through each text seg and apply that. It's going to apply it to the entire segment to include all texture segs. So it's really no need to have to use the copy forward when you've got all them text segs on there. It's just a little bit more, I guess, as far as to just go forward instead of copy forward, so that you don't wreck your logos, as far as your text segs on your wall. So with this moving it manually forward, I can go racing surface forward, roughly over in this area, racing surface forward instead of copy forward, racing surface. Now if I switch this back over, you'll see all this geometric steel on all the way through here, which should be gray as opposed to that burnt orange, and it doesn't mess up my my textures, and as far as all my texture segs for my wall logos. Let's go back to extended, same view. So you can see that's all gray as far as to represent the racing surface as opposed to. So that's just something fairly to mention, I guess, as far as not wanting to use that copy forward and use that manual forward to move from one segment to the next to be able to apply that. And you do not have to go to each text seg, I guess, to apply that property. It'll apply all the way throughout. So there's really no need to use that copy forward. Yeah, torch campaign meds. That's funny. The heck? You guys are just creating all kinds of your own commands. That's funny. That save a ton of work. Oh, it absolutely would. And I guess the only reason I wanted to make that point is it would be very easy to not notice what it's doing to your textures if you were to stay in this mode. To ensure that you're applying that by, especially if you're using that copy forward. I've gotten, in my early goings with doing the track building, I was 100% guilty of doing that. And I didn't realize this until I switched it back over to display textures. I'm like, oh shoot, what the hell happened to all my textures? And coming to that realization. So I'm kind of sharing, I guess, my own issues, I guess, with my own adventures, I guess, as far as with that happening. It's like it would be a lot of work lost. Now, with all that being said too, even if you were to do that in just one session, a sandbox, this is another reason why you want to save often. so you have something to fall back on. Now, if you would have done it just in one session and then switched it back after doing it in this mode
Hit the pace car.
with all your colors,
Hit the pace car.
you could definitely go back to a previous PTF save and then just start over as far as to do it the right way. I am, definitely. Yep. And I'm kind of working my way up to that. So I think I'm pretty close to that. The only thing I need to do, and I kind of reminded myself at the start of stream there, some of the newer things that Torch had given me last minute as far as that involved the victory lane. I don't have that PTF save, I guess, as far as over to the game track directory. So I work entirely from an editing track folder, which is what I'm showing right now, and then I have the game track folder as far as for the sim itself. They're totally separate, and it's always suggested as far as to be able to do that, because if not anything else, that gives you a backup. So if anything you screw up in your editing, you still have it. If something screws up really bad, you have something to fall back on in your game track directory. It's definitely an advantage, I guess, to doing that. It may seem like overkill in a lot of cases, but trust me, because there's no undo in Sandbox, there's no auto save or anything like that. So you've got to create any type of fail save as much as possible. So just to save yourself a headache. I think I've probably shown enough of this. Like I said, all I need to do is get the PTF, the track PTF save of the last second stuff there. So those minimal things to the victory lane, I guess, as far as over to that. I do have the files, the 3DO and the texture, the updated texture to victory lane, just not the PTF. So I think that's probably a good point to be able to. I think I've shown off enough here. I think we've been able to show quite a bit, I guess, as far as what's going on with the track. So anything I've done on stream here, I guess, with the track, I'm not saving any of that. That's just all just to kind of see what has been done to the track, as well as what could and shouldn't be done, I guess, if that makes sense. So I'm not saving any of this. Kind of a throwaway, even, if you will. Let's do that. Alright, so let me go ahead and move over that PTF. So a little bit of busy work, I guess, as far as to get that PTF save. And that is kind of currently what I got loaded, but I haven't saved it, right? I haven't saved it. So anything that I've done in this session here, Sandbox, that I'm in, that PTF is still valid, because it doesn't have anything that I did on stream here, because as far as in that PTF. So let's go ahead. Go over onto my other screen here. I'm going to move that over. That is... Just bear with me a second, folks. This is that one here. Copy that. And put that into our game track directory. I've shown this quite a bit. Actually, I can probably just, let me do this. And I didn't get my my handy dandy mouse overlay, I guess, on there too. Y'all supposed to keep me honest on these things, you know? I do. All right, why is it not? Hold on. It's not. Let me. Oh, there it goes. Mouse is acting up. There we go. So let's do this. Alright, here we go. So we can kind of see what's going on in the between the game track directory and the track edit folder. So currently what I got on the screen is the track edit folder. This has all of our track editing, as far as that goes. That goes all the way back to July 9th. That's what I mean, it includes a lot more current stuff, but that's as far back as when we started with this one. But the track even goes even further than that. It goes back to December of last year, I think, is what of 2020. So yeah, now the fact that we're closing in, I guess, is coming to this point. It's taken about a year to get the track to where, and it's already drivable, right? I mean, it's totally drivable. But as far as just putting all the final touches on things, as far as what type of track library. And how they populate and so on between the different sessions is all Alright, so this is the track edit directory as I was mentioning. So what I'm needing to do is copy, remember what I named the PTF now. So I need this PTF here that involves the Victory Lane pipes that Torsa sent me just prior to start of stream. I need to copy this over to our game track directory, which is this one. This is our right in within our simulation, so this is the actual game track directory. I'll just kind of back this up to just kind of show. So it has all the tracks that we run in the simulation, to include base tracks, as far as the base simulation tracks, as well as modified tracks. So Torch Dover build, the Chase TE 2019 is in here, for example. Highly recommend that if you haven't gotten already. It's still available on the Spline Design Studios site. If you have the simulation, feel free to go get that, or even at Stunod. I believe it is over at Stunod too, if I'm not mistaken there, right, Torch? Oh yeah, here's our Texas 2020 TE, which is Torch Edition, Texas 2020, and we're going to paste that PTF that is copied in here. Now, a couple more things I need to do. I guess just kind of prep this up here. So here's our deal here. I still have our previous PTF in there, so I need to back that one up at least until we can confirm that this new one will load. So we'll have something to fall back on. I just want to rename that PTF for our current PTF, if you will. So I'm going to rename this one. Like I said, a lot of busy work. Okay. So I already have a backup in here, so I'm just going to name it 2. That's fine. So I got 2 backups anyway, so I'll definitely be able to purge these. I won't need those once I can confirm that this new PTF is going to work just fine. Alright, so here's that PTF here. What I want to do, and this is what I always suggest, copy the actual track folder name. That's what you need to have in order for that PTF to load in the sim. It needs to be the same exact name as your track folder. Otherwise it will not load. One right here. So I'm always careful, I guess, the way I've got it on this game track directory, I don't have a lot of those file extensions like the PTF registered with it. It'll still load it, right? But as far as like having a specific icon, I guess, for it, so it's a little bit tougher, I guess, to be able to determine that. I need to fix that at some point. It's more of a clarity, I guess, as far as, and not only on stream, but for myself to be able to find these files much quicker, as far as to have even a custom logo that gets applied to that file type. Alright, so from what I copied, which was the track folder name, I'm just going to paste that as the prefix to that file extension, which is a PTF, which is a papyrus track file or format, however you want to put it. That's the shortness, I guess, as far as originating from a papyrus track file. Basically the short of the PTF. That's the original developer for the NASCAR Racing 2003 simulation. Okay, so that is all set. I've already got the files, like I said, as far as for the 3DOs in that, into the track folder. I just didn't have that PTF for the track PTF save in that position that it needs to be. So that's all I needed to do. So from here, I can load up our wheel profiler here. I've already got it on to NASCAR Racing 2003. I'm going to load it up. And I'm just going to go initially into testing just to see if the track will load, right? And then from there, I'll get the wheel over here and we'll be able to run around on it, you know, as far as even go either in testing or in race mode. Yeah, G27. Hell yeah. Yeah, so let's initially go into testing session. And I like to keep it on this wind speed of 2 miles an hour because we do have animated flags as far as that do wave. And the way they are designed, at least currently, when they're static, on the one side of them they tend to be flipped the wrong direction as far as the texture for the flag. So to put it on the 2 mile an hour, it tends to show the way it should on both sides. That's why I always just put it on just that minimal little bit of wind, just to get them to wave as far as that animation goes. We'll load it up this way, and the track loads initially in testing mode. That's good. I'll go to drive. So the track loads. So we did everything right, I guess, as far as to get the track PTF name properly, as well as all the files related to that PTF loaded in. Alright, so now we have confirmed that. What I'll do now is just get out of this. And I'm going to load this up into a race session, but I'm going to move the wheel over here real quick. So give me just a moment. I'm going to mute the mic real quick and get that shifted over here so that we can run some laps on this thing. Alright, give me just a moment. Un momento. Okay, that should have been relatively painless. Now we've got it all set up here to where I can comfortably run some laps around here with racing wheel. It's gonna break anytime now? What do you mean break anytime now? Oh, talk about the bot there. Getting it liquored up there. Get it boosted up. Alright, here we go. Y'all ready for this? No, this is probably the most favorite part, being able to get into the sim itself. You'll be able to show that off there. So I guess I already had the mouse overlay and that stuff already minimized, so I guess that wasn't a thing, I guess, for the most part. I mean, I was more or less just going through this critiquing, I guess, as far as everything that's been updated and such. I guess it wasn't too bad. So, let's go ahead. I'm going to turn that off, so we can get all the sounds that are in sim. And we want to go back to single race. So, I am using, for anybody that wasn't aware, and I don't know if this has been made public yet, Cosmin, as far as the original creator, I guess, as far as of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series mod for 19, has put out a, in his own Discord, I guess you could say, for now. I don't know if he's there's no website for Splash and Go anymore. He's kind of more focused on the iRacing stuff. But he has made available to anybody that is within earshot of him, I suppose, the 2020 mod. So what this does have into it is the way they redone the Camaros in particular, with the shorter snout, the redefined nose for 2020, and current for 2021. Because obviously, as we know, in NASCAR for next season, they are running the next gen cars. That's going to be a whole different animal. So I think he just found it necessary just to kind of bring it as up to date as possible. And it's a very modest change, I guess, to the mod. The fact that the current templates that were existent for the Monster Energy, the NASCAR Cup Monster Energy 19 for 19 there, still work for this particular mod. So it's just, yeah. So, and I kind of showed that last week, I guess, as far as how the snout on these works. So this is the same skin that I had on the Monster Energy 19 mod, and the only thing it does is it removes a lot of the depth, as far as the shelf or whatever you want to call it, of the headlights, where that top of the grill is. It's not quite as deep, to include, I guess, as far as some minor changes, I guess, to the rear side of it too. a little bit more modest, I guess, even there too. But the fact that you know, just to kind of do it before, there may not necessarily be a next gen cut mod for the simulation. That's still yet to be shown. I know there are a couple of modding groups out there called like Full Circle Racing. That's on Twitter, as far as I know. Anyway, I've been following those guys. There's a group of them that's kind of throwing some ideas out there for a next gen car for the simulation. From what I've seen so far, it looks pretty cool. From what I do notice, it's pretty poly heavy. They've been putting out some of the numbers, I guess, as far as what kind of poly weights are on it, and they're pretty thick with a lot of C's. And whether or not that's going to be usable, I guess, as far as in a simulation like Inter 2003 is still yet to be seen. So hopefully so, but it's like I said, it's still yet to be seen. Whether or not it comes out prior to the end of this year or next year, again, still yet to be seen. But I think to have something a little bit more up to date. It only involves the Camaros, as far as I know, from what Cosmin has said. That's all I know. I haven't really been paying attention that closely, I guess, as far as with that. But those guys, they're always on top of it, I guess, as far as because they paint those on the regular. They like painting those types of cars on the regular, and they like to have a nice palette to be able to paint on, and a current palette, I guess, as far as that goes as well. So, anywho, just to kind of show, I guess, as far as that, we will be testing out, I guess, on our Spline Design Studios ride. Yep, that nostalgia. Yep, you're darn right. The fact that even in this this particular set, as far as like, and I think I've mentioned this before, in this set for the 2020 mod, the most current one that he's got put out there, and again, like I said, I don't know if it's public. There is a Fred Jones car, I do believe, which is the staple number, I guess, as far as the number 86 that Papyrus necessarily originally did. There's one of those big jackpots. So how many is that now? Is that 3? I kind of lost count. So I'm just gonna run through these here. So some of these are all current. They're depicting the 2020 season of NASCAR. But I was gonna look through there. Maybe they don't have one in here. Might have been a different car set that I was thinking of, I guess, as far as that in there. But I did notice that one of the car sets, they did showcase, I guess, as far as the number 86 Fred Jones car, which was the original Papyrus car that always came with a lot of the NASCAR racing game car sets. They always had to have the good old Fred Jones 86 car. Yeah, I don't think it's in this one. It's just mine. And I've done this for 21, but yeah. That should be both that and multiplayer. Alright, let's do this. I just want to give a little plug out, I guess, as far as, there is still plenty of, modern and current content, fresh content even, I guess, as far as being made for such an old simulation. And the fact that it is such an old dog that we're teaching new tricks, it's pretty fun to do it. And because it is so moddable. Okay, so we got this car list here, 41 cars. That'll be 42 cars on the track to include myself. That's the way it is in reality. We've confirmed, I guess, with Torch, I guess, as far as that's number of cars that they do run IRL, I guess, as far as in the NASCAR circuit, for Cup at least, anyway. So yeah, we're gonna run a little bit 17 laps. So we'll load this right up. So this will be another test. A whole different level. So in testing mode, you don't have all the other vehicles as you do in this session. So it's really going to test everything that's done with the track so far, as far as models and parameters for pitting protocols. I mean, just all of that. Putting that all together and seeing how the track behaves with this mod. The fact that even this mod, as it was for even the Monster Energy 19 mod, it's still pretty, it's as detailed as it is. It's a very good mod, I guess, to be able to bench test how you're building your track. So not necessarily to build the track, I guess, around such a, a very detailed mod, but just to ensure the direction you're going with the track, it's not going to be the track itself is not going to be so poly heavy, because this mod is already pretty poly heavy because of a lot of detail. And so far, from what we've tested on there, even with the settings that I've got graphics wise and whatever, it's been pretty decent. It hasn't given us a lot of headaches, so that's always good. Yeah, let me do some practice laps on here quick. We'll run back out with these guys, see what's going on. When you redo their inner walls, you will be able to do some poly count a lot. Well, see, there you go. See, even at this stage of the game, you'll have that option, I guess, to be able to do that. That's nothing wrong with that. That's always a good thing. Wherever you can remove, I guess, some poly weight, I guess, to the overall track as a whole, and still maintain, you know, a decent amount of detail without, you know, crunching, you know, stepping on that at all. That's always a good thing. All right, let's do some practice laps.
Hit road speed 45.
Now, she should tell me I'm clear
Number 2500 second gear.
once I get past this green.
Clear to the wall. They're all clear. All clear. Go hard.
Once we get in that general zone, I guess, of that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we have already made a note that the LPs, especially the race LP, going to the dog leg definitely needs to be redone. It still needs a little tweaking. Look at how close they get to that wall. So that's definitely another LP that'll need to be done as far as that max pit line. They ride that wall, the inside wall, pretty close. So this needs to get bumped out just a little bit. And that's pretty easy to get to redo. I can merge in here. So just trying to show the transitions there a little bit too of the banking. A little bit of sun in the eyes. So this is the lower banking on this end of the track. And once I get up to speed and get really going around here, you'll definitely see how much you got to slow down there to kind of keep yourself in the groove. So you can go much faster on this end. Get in fourth gear. My car, the way I got this set up here, likes to push really bad out of four. And they slow up quite a bit here in the dog leg.
1.0.
Yep. So I'm just too much brake. Yeah, they slow up quite a bit there, and definitely improves the fact that, you know, the race LP for sure definitely needs to get redone so that there's not quite as much braking by the AI in that zone. So I got to really watch the dog leg here because they slow up quite a bit. You give them a lot of room. Yep. See how much they slow up?
0.4. 6, 0, 1 inside.
But you definitely have to go much slower on this end of the track, and that is the way it is IRL because of the less banking than there is on 3 and 4. So the track definitely does drive much the same as it does IRL. So the fact that the track, if I haven't mentioned that already for those that didn't know, the track is built based on real-world information that is known as LiDAR, real topographical data, based on the area, you know, as far as the venue. So it's no guesswork. It's all based on real information, real-world information, as far as elevation, topography. Oh, it pushes so bad in turn 4. It's going to slow up quite a bit. Watch.
30.4. 9, 4.
Oh, he didn't quite so much. Definitely have to go way slower in this end.
Inside.
This is all just practice, so it's not racing. It's just, you know, kind of getting a feel for the track. Everybody's kind of dialing in their setup.
Clear low.
I'll probably run this practice session. Oh, it's only, I think I did 10 minutes. Goes by pretty quick, actually.
0.8.
Oh man, it slow up so much.
0.
Dude,
Inside.
don't need to slow down that much.
Clear.
Yeah, one of these times we'll end up redoing, I guess, the race LP in particular, just to kind of eliminate a lot of that. It's mostly just in that section of the track. Everywhere else is pretty solid. Just in the dog leg here.
31.
Kind of anticipating them braking and such. So
0. Outside. Clear high.
Alright, I'm gonna come into the pits. Just kind of show the transition, I guess, into the pits. Especially when you got other cars around you.
Clear high.
Very smooth.
Pit road speed 45.
Right on the green mark.
Legal man number 2500 second gear.
Tells me when to get down to speed, and you want to be down to speed before you get to that first pit stall on pit road. And if you don't, you're going to get black flag. We've tested all that
Speed, do
previously.
not speed here. Remember,
So even while you're going down
2500
pit road, you got to watch. That's 45 mile an hour.
3.8 5 9. Back up free.
Oh, guess I got in too deep.
Pit road speed
My fault.
45.
Driver here.
Legal man number
Get our guys
2500 second gear.
some practice here. 15 seconds, guys. Come on. Get it.
Okay, go.
Good stop. Good
Pit road
stop.
speed 45.
Yeah, it's all practice. So
Legal man number
that would have been a
2500
big
second
boo-boo
gear.
on my part if I would
Pit road
have kept
speed
in reverse.
45. Legal man number
R does not
2500
mean
second gear.
race in this sense here. Oh, as far as the house, yeah, I mean, it's easy to be able to depict, because what we'll do, so there's a lot of what we've covered, I guess, as far as how we use the LiDAR in conjunction with the satellite imagery, as far as the real-world information to line that up with that, right? So it's like, you can definitely depict, I guess, as far as what is what. So yeah, as far as the spiky bits that you get in the LiDAR, especially with what we've had with this Texas build, to be able to differentiate, as far as like, okay, that's just a light pole, you know, as a comparison to like you know, something else. So yeah, we were able to kind of really discern that once you use something that's satellite imagery to overlay that with the LiDAR. So you're not using the LiDAR just by itself, right? You want to use something picturesque, I guess, as far as that does depict the actual real world too, to make a one-to-one comparison between the LiDAR and that and satellite imagery. And that's where we've gotten to where we're at. It's like the better part of a year. I mean, it hasn't been like, I mean, Torch might be able to elaborate more on that, I guess, as far as it's been kind of on and off. There was a little bit of a hiatus there on it there, but even with the hiatus there, I guess, as far as, you know, taking a little bit of a break from it, it's taken quite a while, probably a good 9-10 months at least anyway, to get it to this point. So I'm just kind of watching all the cars go by, and I'm watching the frames, because that's something critical you want to watch, especially with where we got the track as it is. So all these other cars are going by, they need to be rendered in by the sim. I'm just paying attention, I guess, as far as if there's any dramatic frame rate drop. So it might be kind of hard to see. I think it is cut off a little bit, but it's staying relatively within the high 120s, low 130s. So it's pretty decent, especially with as detailed as this mod that we're using, as far as this car mod that we're using. Okay. I think that's enough practice on there. I'm going to go right to qualifying. I'm going to try to get to, I might start from the rear. This is what I like to do, as far as to start from the back of the field and, you know, really test the strength, I guess, as far as of the cars, you know, to have to all render in ahead of me. I do keep it at 100% drawing distance, I guess, as far as have all the cars show, not just a portion of them. So let's get out of this. We're going to go right to race for this initial test. So I'll start right from the back of the field. I'll have all 41 cars ahead of me.
Drivers,
relatively.
your cars.
I'll have next to like one next to me. Okay. Let's go. Here we go.
Drivers, start.
So again,
your
while we're
engines.
on pit road, we got all these cars rendering in. So the fact that it gets down to about low to mid 60s, I guess, as far as the frames, that's pretty daggone decent. especially for this system that I've got. And as detailed as the track is so far, as well as the car model that we're using. Pretty decent. And even with getting into accidents, where it is a totally different mod that has to load, a level of the car that has to load, that is the damage model, you don't see it drop like too substantially. You know, and make the drivability of the tracks unusable. Oh yeah, so yeah, when my PC was down, right? That's probably a fair mention too. Yeah, it was actually a good 5 months, because it was like February of 20. Well, at the beginning of February of 20, I didn't get another my new PC until like July. Beginning of July. It was just before 4th of July, actually, of this year.
Alright, man. I'll call the green.
Really
man.
decent
Now you're
frame
I'll
rates
walk
at this
in front
point.
of you.
A lot of cars that
Yeah.
have to load in front of me.
Alright, man. Pace cars in.
I'm also paying attention as far as what's going on with the walls, as far as the clipping or the lack thereof of the medallions into the walls, for example. So in turn 1, I'm going to hang back here a little bit just to kind of see if that's what it's still doing. Not noticing anything there, so that's very unnoticeable there. Turn 2. Pretty decent there. We'll really be able to see a difference in the replay. So we'll get a chance to watch the replay after this run is done. So we'll be able to see a lot easier that clipping of such items that we were looking at in Sandbox. Oh man, so such a bad push. Yeah, look at them all slowing up.
Outside.
Crap.
30.
Ah, man, they slow up way so much. Alright, I got no cautions on, so that's... I did it intentionally so we don't have to run under caution. But even as with me spinning out there and I had to generate all that smoke, all that stuff, that's another thing to test out. Not that I try to do that on purpose, it's just... we've seen plenty of pretty fantastic wrecks happen on this by no fault of myself, but the AI, and the fact that it doesn't totally kill the frame rates of the frame rates do drop, and that's to be expected because it has to render all that stuff in. Let's see if we can catch up with these guys. See how good of a car we got. I go so much slower on this end. I cannot drive this way. I don't know how. I gotta go more this way. I'm more connected with the car, at least this way. Either this or cockpit. I feel more one with the car. Oh man, it pushes so bad.
30.85.
They got a pretty good jump on me now. They got a good 11 seconds ahead of me now. I kind of took my time. Kind of burned my tires up. I can see them there. They're going right out of turn 4 right now. Through the fence. So they're within close range. They're going into turn 1. See the tail end of the field there.
30.4. 1, 2.
I'm driving it. I'm driving like I stole it. See if I can catch up to it. Even if I can't, it's not a big deal. This is all just for testing. So they're just going on to turn 3. Going into 4. I'm gaining on them. Oh, I bottom out so bad there. Just the way I've got the car set up.
29.8.
I can definitely do a better lap than that. I've done like mid 28s. Going all the way back to like the very first time we tested on there, I think I got like a 27, which is way too fast. We've taken a lot of account into grip levels for the track, kind of balance it out a little bit better. Not only with the player car, but also the AI. Yeah, we're definitely catching up with these guys. And probably a lot of it has to do with the way they slow up in that dog leg. Slope a little bit too much. Alright, now we see if we can do some side by side. Do some real racing. Here the car just bottoming out on that low side of turns 3 and 4.
10 to go, next time.
10 to go.
Next time, by keeping them inside. Stay high, 30.7, 1, 2. Still
I'm just focusing on this right now.
Side, at your door,
Trying to get some side by side in here without wrecking.
at your door. Clear.
Oh yeah. Yep, that's probably a good point. I just remembered that. I think that's what you were probably mentioning. So being able to get into the grass,
1,
not get a black flag.
0, 0, 1 outside.
Easy.
At your door.
Ooh, kind of leaned on him a little bit.
Clear.
We're both good. I go so much slower in that corner though. Yeah, so the fact that you can go through the grass without getting a black flag now. So like, especially if you're doing a lot of side by side through there, less insult to injury. So you can definitely, depending on how far you go into it, you can go pretty deep
1.1.
without getting a black flag.
4. Inside. Clear.
And that's why we put that buffer zone in there.
Inside.
Because otherwise, the way we had it prior to putting that buffer zone in there, you were getting a black flag just barely getting into the grass.
Clear. 1 inside. Still
Oh, look
there.
at those guys
Clear.
racing me. Woo! Yeah, bad push.
Inside. Clear low.
Oh, they slow up so dang much. Hold on to it.
7, 4, 0, 1 inside.
I got a lot of bent up fenders, that's all I know. Tires are freaking shot. I do have it on
Inside.
a 2x pit frequency too, so the wear is going to be a little bit, you know, it's balanced as far as for this short of a run. So it's kind of multiplied by 2 because of how short I made the actual race.
7, 5.
That's something you have the ability to adjust.
Clear low.
NASCAR Heat 5, he's got this.
At your door.
It's pretty cool.
Still there.
I haven't played mine yet. I do have it in my library, but 5 I haven't got there. 4 I have, but not 5. I haven't having too much fun in this one.
5 to go. 31.
5 to go.
7, 8.
Oh,
3.
oh,
1 inside.
dang it, dude.
Still
No
there.
cautions.
They're all over the racetrack. In turn 1. At your door.
Oh, that one hurt.
Inside. Clear.
That one hurt.
Inside.
But anyway, that does give you an
Still
idea
there.
of how the track responds, I guess, as far as
Clear.
when wrecks do occur. Definitely don't want to see a huge drop in frames. So the fact the mod is what it is, there's not much you can adjust to that.
3. 4.
You know, you can't really get into that and modify that as much as we can fix, I guess, as far as what might be too poly heavy in the track.
Stay high. At your door.
This guy racing me. Side by side here. Give me a
Clear
ring.
low. 31.
I'm gonna be really curious to watch the replay on this one.
2.
It's pretty good.
Inside.
And shift there.
Still there.
Engine thing is hurt.
Clear.
Where's my engine? Tires are definitely shot. That's for sure. Where am I at? Position wise, 37th? Okay. We did gain in a couple. I started at 42nd.
1.4. 0. 0.
One more lap. Yeah, so you can definitely see how far I went past the lead segment, so finish line. So this would be checkered coming right up here.
White flag.
Next lap.
North line.
Yep.
30.
So all that's working as far as like how that goes. The way the see now it's checkered, so you can see where it spawns. That flag. It's going right into turn 1, and that's where it should be. That's where you want it. Because the majority of the field, it's going to give room for the majority of the field, and I'm closer to the tail end, right? 36th spot out of 42. So that's a really good spot where that's spawning, and that's all comes down to how wide those track segments are. Is what determines that. So that's checkered right there. So the fact that it was going that
Checker flag right here.
white flag, checker flag was right there going into turn
Do a
1.
little bit better next time. We need to be a better race team overall. You know what I mean?
That's kind of where we want it to be. So there's that mark that's kind of on the track, and I think I kind of showed that. Lucy, I'll just show that once I'm done with this race. There's a mark on the track that, with that blue line that's also on the wall, that's kind of right about that zone is where that flag is spawning. Not that that has anything to do with how that spawns, but it comes down to how those track segments are laid out. What determines that.
Hey, you go, man, that for 2,500 seconds.
Let me get to my stall, man. Oh, you crowded me, dude. Okay, I see how you're gonna be. Okay. And let me get to my stall. I gotta back up now. Alright, Dan. Alright, we don't need to really go to our stall. Let's go to victory lane. How about that? We do have the ability to do that. We have the opening. And not that wall, even though it does have a visual there. This is the only opening that you can. Your lane is the one that's the closest. And that's all been redone. So, just like Torch had mentioned, we do have to remove. So we're gonna watch this replay here. Kind of skim through it. You just notice on medallions on the inner wall. We're all white. Oh, we're gonna take a look at it in replay here. Oh, crew chief, give me a tire check. Yeah, I can definitely tell you they were screaming. Oh, F4. I didn't want to do F4 because that'll change my scene. I've got that on a hotkey. That's the only reason why I guess I didn't do that. I apologize. the markings on the track itself, and then that blue line, like I was showing with the copy forward function there, right about in that zone, just prior to turn 1, getting into the entrance of turn 1 is when that flag for the white flag and the checker will spawn. That's a really good. You added the extra medallion? No, I guess I don't. I'd have to plead ignorance on that one, I suppose. Well, that's the initial start. We did get the flagger into the proper position now. The start flags there. Oh, you added another to the texture. Right. Okay, yeah, that much I do remember. I thought you were speaking in terms of adding an extra medallion, 3D model wise. Yeah. So as far as the texture, yeah, I remember you said that. We'll take a look and see if we got that. It may have been just something. May have been as simple as I didn't get that copied over to the game track directories. I'll have to take a look at it and see. Oh man, they slow up so much. Yep, definitely got out of shape there. Speed that up. And I played catch up here. Mustard. Yeah, so even as I'm driving by myself, you definitely get a lot more frames. Driving by myself as opposed to once I get up to the tail end of the field again. But they don't drop so low that it's like unbearable. That's what you would definitely want to test, like, even at this stage of the game. Because as you add more things, like to the infield area, as far as they add more livery, as far as in the form of camper groups and team haulers and garage area, it's going to add more poly weight. So you want to definitely pay attention as far as how that's affecting and where you might have to scale back things, for example. Yeah, that white medallion definitely sticks out there, doesn't it? Yeah, so that's at least a couple things we want to take a look at here once we get out of the replay here. Let's fast forward that to when I get back up to the field. Got up to them pretty easy. It just goes to show you though how nicely this track, how smooth it is. The transitions to it, I guess, as far as even considering, I guess, as far as how much lower the banking is on one end in comparison to the other, to depict, I guess, as far as just like the way it is in reality. So as I get into this part of the field, you can see the frames do drop. It says it would be expected. But it's keeping how much it drops to a minimum. Even as I pass cars and they get out of my view, frame rates tend to climb back up. Again, that's what you want to expect. Really bottom out in there, the way they got that set up on that. You know, probably another thing, I guess, fair mention, I don't like to look at my F4, just as far as start attempts. I don't even want to think about it. I can tell by the way the car's responding how hot they're getting. You know, so when it starts really pushing and just, you know, wanting to really just like a dump truck, I know I need to lay off just to kind of get them cooled off again. And it's really hard to do that because you're still trying to stay with the field. So especially with this push that I get out of 4, that doesn't help it either because it tends to want to slide sideways, which is going to add heat to this. So I was showing how you can get into the grass without getting a black flag. So no matter if you made a mistake, I guess as far as just a miscue, I guess as far as getting, you know, not following, hitting your marks, or if you're racing against other cars that you kind of get pushed down there, it's not going to add insult to injury. Oh yeah, bad push. Oh man, they slow up so much. It's It's kind of different when I guess when you're watching it in the replay as opposed to actually driving it. I almost want to re-steer the car. It's like, no, I didn't mean to do that. NASCAR Heat 5. This box. It's on a Ford. It's on a Ford. Oh man, bad push. Yeah, so that area right there that's got the white lines on there, that's about where that flag. Now it won't show in the replay, unfortunately, I guess as far as the overlay for the flag on the screen. But so what lap am I on? 12. Let me get to the last lap here. So this is the last lap. White flag. Let me go back one more. Span this up. So it would have been right about. Hold on. This thing. We want to go back here. Right about this zone right there is when the white flag should have shown. So I don't think we're going to be able to. Let me see if I can put it on rear. Nope, won't be able to see. I was gonna see if I could tell. We got some cars back there. Let me see if I can. The flag at that point should have been flying as far as the white. Go back. Oh, it's going forward, darn it. Go back this way. Base car. All right. So he's not. So I'm gonna go forward a couple frames. You can see it. It's all about the leader too. So this is the tail end of the field. We're in the 41st position here. Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to see it. But anyway, as that leader comes around, you know, as far as the timing, I guess as far as the way, and again, it all comes down to how the track segments are built. It basically, the simulation will calculate, I guess, as far as where the last car is and the leader, and then it basically just differentiates, I guess, as far as like when that white flag will spawn. So it's relatively spawning, I guess, as far as about when that last place car hits that. So we won't be able to see it. That's why I'm on that last car on the field as far as the 41st position. And as we get to that spot, yeah, it's going to be hard to see it, fortunately. But right about get to it. Right about, okay, so I passed it. So right about in this region right here is when that flag should be. So you can't really see it, but it should be right there is when that white flag should be showing. So that's a really nice balance. So the leader, kind of show where the leader's at. Let's do the standings. So this leader right now, number 2, so that's Brad Koslowski. Let's put it on the 2. See where he's at. He should be, if I had to guess there, he's going to be either going right into 3 or in the middle of 3 and 4. Somewhere in that range, give or take. Yep, so we put it on the front. Put it on the front here, let's see. Yep, so, yeah, he's actually coming out of 4 right now. So you can see that differential, I guess, between the last place car and the leader, I guess, as far as where that's going to come out. Oh, you gotta go now? No problem, Armar. I know I'm just kind of babbling here, but hopefully, yeah, I appreciate you stopping by. Yeah, those definitely come in handy, I guess, as far as to get my attention with that. That's kind of the mainstay, I guess, as far as some of those sound alerts to get my attention. I do get to babbling, you know, just kind of showing things off here. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of insight, I guess, as far as what we like doing here on Saturdays. So, yeah, I guess the only thing I was showing you, so right now I'm on the leader. Brad Koslowski there, and he's the leader. And if we go back to the 41st car, which was think it was the number 36, if I remember right. This dude. Last pace car. So you can see that differential, and the white flag should already be flying right about now. So I want to look here. Right around this area, at least, anyway. So yeah, the fact that we had it relatively this part. So this is pit entrance, just to kind of give clarity. This is coming just out of turn 4, because as far as the end of the PJ1 and the exit of 4, we can see white flag already showing prior to the leader already coming there. So that last place car, this is probably a lap down car. See a lap down? That's actually the 78. He's number 42. So that's the actual last place car. He's really off the pace. In any case, that's a pretty good balance, I guess, as far as where those flags actually spawn. It's not too late, it's not too early. So it's not going to get even the slowest cars, I guess, as far as way off pace. You know, as far as the timing goes, as far as getting a black flag, I guess, for coming down a pit road because of this, you know, leader being in this position when they really weren't, and so on. Timing of that, with the way those segments are done, is going to help that. Pretty cool. So I ended up in 36th spot. Okay. Okay, there's a white flag. I'm gonna go back and forth between the leader here. So the 36 car, the number 36 car, is 41st position. 78 is the last. He must have gotten in a wreck here. Alright, let me go back to that 36 car. We're just gonna consider him the last place car. Right. And the race is already complete. So that was the 2 car. The leader already took the checker. That lap went by faster. Yeah, so that's, yeah, again, I think that differential is perfect, I guess, as far as how that's working. Because the 36 car, I got it on 36th place, but the number 36 car, which is in 41st spot, is roughly, put it back to him real quick. So we got Brad is coming right here, right at the start finish line at the checkered. And the 36 car here, he's just going into turn 1. Right after that spot, that has that mark on there. Now, like I said, that has nothing to do. Right there, you can see that mark. That mark doesn't have anything to do with that, but that's just helping me gauge as far as how those things are spawning, if you will. I don't even know, what do they use that line for in actuality? I know Torch, you had put that line down there, I guess, as far as to I don't know what they actually used that for. Anywho, I think that was pretty good. And then, what was the standings here? So, Rakoslawski actually won. 172, as far as the average speed. No cautions I had on there, so that's, but he had relatively tight interval there, too. A little less than 0.2 of a second behind Denny Hamlin. And then another 0.4, I guess, behind that. I don't even know who that is. Ryan Preece, I think that's who that is. This kind of seems like an underdog. Pretty cool, though. Alright, so yeah, now we'll take a look at yeah, so far I think our track is doing pretty good. Pretty darn good. Alright, let's hide that. Let's switch this over to, we're gonna check some things out. Torch mentioned, I guess, as far as that white medallion, I guess, as far as on that fixed piece, which should have been fixed. Let's take a look at it. So let's switch this over. Like so. Alright, so what do we got? So that that model, what is the name of that bad boy? Let's spawn this over here. Hold on, I gotta adjust some things. Give me a second. Un momento. Alright, so we gotta move that over. At least we got one race in there. Always like to try to do that, I guess, as far as with every time. Move that here for a second, be back. Just alrighty then, so let's see what we got here. Dusty Sandbox. I'm gonna go into Object, Smithville, and we want to, now again, I want to take the approach of, I could try select that, but I was probably just gonna get the infield, so let's do it this way. So we're gonna go into our items list here, and that should be softwall inner turn 1. This one right here. So what texture do we have on that? So we're gonna go, so whether if we built this or not, we can check it this way as far as the actual model that we're dealing with. Actually, yeah, that should be the one, so it should include that here. So what we're looking at, I didn't even notice that in Sandbox. Let me see, is that doing that here? Sure the heck is. Alright. Sorry, I missed that. So yeah, the fact that it does exist here even in Sandbox, much the same. So that clipping for the other medallions, it was not that terrible, I guess, as far as in the sim, right? So as far as any adjustability in Sandbox may not be necessary, it still might not be a bad idea to go ahead and make those adjustments to the geometric wall just to ensure that there is going to be no clipping. You could still do that, even though you don't witness, I guess, a whole lot of clipping in the sim. It's still not going to hurt that. So that's just something to take into consideration. So let's take a look at the texture for this. Softwall inner, turn 1. Right, and then we're going to go into track edit folder, which is right here. And then find that same 3DO. Styro, so where's softwall inner? 1. So there's that. So we're going to open this up with our handy dandy notepad, and then we're going to search for MIP and see what textures we got applied to it. I know Torch probably already knows, but both in the motion. So softwall inner. Yep. So we're going to go with that texture, softwall inner. Load that up in a WinMit 2. I already showed what the differences were between that outer extras. Okay, so we don't need to see that anymore. It's that minimal change to it since first time we've seen it. So we're going to look for softwall inner in our track edit folder. Proper folder. Softwall inner. Here. There's our track build. Track edit folder, I should say. And we're looking for softwall inner, which is this bad boy right there. So this one does not have, I remember you were telling me, Torch, but I guess I do not have that. The effect of the new one right there, so I probably need that texture. I'm going to take a look in my, what you gave me last, just out of curiosity. These are just the 3DOs, brand new ones, which includes that softwall inner turn 1. Pink. Was it not? Or was that a previous one? I forget now. What was the date on that? It's probably better yet. That was. Oh, okay. I'll get it post stream then. I don't have Discord, or I gotta keep that thing shut because it uses a lot of resources. What's the date on this one? 1126. So that is new. So that should be. Yeah. So that should be in this. Oh, I know where it was probably in this one. Redone. Yeah, here it is. I knew I had it. So here's the. So that was the only one that was done on the inside walls. One redone, but I do not have the updated texture with that. So if you meant to send me that texture, obviously I'll get that post fact. But at least that's all it is. And ultimately, all it does, I know that's what texture was alluding to. It adds another medallion, like right in this spot. So once I get that in there, that's where that's parts. That's why it's showing white. It's obviously, the texture that I have, all it does is white. That's why it's showing up like that. Once I get the appropriate texture, it'll show properly. That should be fixed rather simply. Huh? Yep. So the fact that it shows the welds and all that stuff on that. Yep. Like it does. Okay, cool. I know it seems maybe a rather bit short, but I know that was a lot to go over with, to kind of show what was going on there. So plenty, I guess, to be able to do, but also what we showed in there. I think that's we got to be able to get into the sim and actually try it out and see how it actually functions, you know, to make sure that it's still solid. What I'm really curious to see at this point, now that we've got the medallions in here, for the most part, the majority of all those in there. So yeah, I'm not saving this. I was showing that example, I guess, as far as that. So this is all just for demonstration, as far as like, so I know this is all goofed up. I have not saved this, and I don't intend to. What I'm really curious to see at this point is when you start getting these three crowds in there, regardless of if you do it in separate sections or one piece, it's really going to add some more poly weight, a pretty significant amount. You know, when you consider anything in multiplicity, as I always say. So even though you might keep the individual rows of people, 3D people, I guess, at a minimum, anything in multiplicity can add quite a bit of weight. So that's just going to be a lot of, so kind of multiply out this one little section several times throughout these grandstands. I'm really interested to see, with what we've been able to witness so far, of how the frame rates work, especially going to the front stretch, how that's going to impact or not, I guess, as far as how the frame weights are, how much of a hit that's necessarily going to be, for example. That's what I'm going to be looking forward to. So whether or not we get to see that within the next stream or not, that's still yet to be seen. I'm sure we'll have something. We'll definitely have something for next time, that's for sure. And I definitely appreciate everybody that did stop by, I guess, as far as to see what the progress of the track is for now, and what we do here on the channel for Spline Design Studios Saturday. Definitely appreciate Racer James. I know I haven't never heard from Racer James here. I don't know if he zoned out or whatever. I mean, he might be getting into doing some 3D modeling himself. That's sometimes what he likes to do. Kind of gives him some ambition, I guess, as far as sometimes, and that's kind of the other thing we like to do around here too, sometimes. Whether or not that's the case, I hope everybody had fun. I know I had fun, as far as to be able to show all the latest and greatest things going on with the track, as well as being able to race on it and just kind of show it off a little bit. That pretty much concludes, I guess, as far as the streaming week here on the channel. I guess as far as Spline Design Studios Saturday, should be pretty much, as far as I know, for Trucking Tuesday. So for anybody that is interested in doing watching any of the trucking that we do here on Tuesday for Trucking Tuesday, feel free to join in on that. And if you're brand new, just kind of lurking in the chat, and you haven't followed yet, make sure you do that. You get the notification when streams are live. Like to see you around here. Trying to get up to that follower goal, I guess, for the month of November. November here is quickly winding down. We got basically in Good. Another one more solid week as far as this month. On my calendar, at least, anyway. Okay. Well, maybe not a solid week, but we still got a couple days left here in this month. So tell everybody you know, I guess, as far as what's going on here on the Rock Nation channel. And I'm glad to have you. Oh, there's one. Saw that out of the corner of my eye. Definitely saw that out of the corner of my eye. You get that last jackpot in there. Feel free to do that. So I'm gonna cruise here and see if I can find myself a potential raid target here. Feel free, I guess, to stick around, I guess, for the raid. Join in on the raid. You can get those valuable channel points for joining in on the raid, as well as the units of fluid. Very beneficial, I guess, as far as being able to do that. I think where I want to send y'all. He's just gotten back into streaming as of recent. And I think he'll join the company. He's been playing Farm Sim 22 since he's come back here within the last week. And definitely think he's going to appreciate you having over there, like I say. So, let me go ahead and put the link to where I'm going to send y'all. And if you feel like obligated, you guys to go over there right away, because as far as once I post the link in there, feel free to do so. But also don't forget to join in on the raid. You can do both, I guess, as far as go over there right away and also join in on the raid if you keep the tab open for the stream. And get those valuable units of fluid and the channel points. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he I didn't hear him say he was leaving or anything like that, but yeah, I definitely appreciate Racer James coming back, especially with the resub. Good to know that he's still he still likes us around here, I suppose, right? Okay, so here's the link. I'm gonna have the bot put out there, I guess, as far as the link for anybody that's coming in late to where I'm gonna send you. And like I said, you can feel free to go over there right away if you so choose. But also don't forget to join on the raid if you can. If you need to get going, that's totally understandable as well. But we'll see y'all again real soon. Oh, I'll just come on, raid. Sometimes these things get broke. That's why I put the link out there. Bear with me, folks. In fact, let me switch this over to the raid scene. Yeah, let's go ahead and switch this over to the raid scene. Appreciate everybody that did come on by here, especially the resub, I guess, by Racer James for sure. Relatively quiet for the most part. I think we had some pretty decent fun. We'll see y'all again real soon, though. Bye for now.